men are better at poker than women.
I have to fully agree with you. It just reminded me of the Chrissy B thing. I don't know if you've noticed. It's something we're lacking. We just can't stop.
Charlie, you're a very smart young man.
Sorry to interrupt you. The answers you get, like you just see the words or you hear a voice or... You're the only one that I do not prepare for podcasts. And here we go, Charlie Carrel visiting me today. It's, I think, our second time on the RYE Podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today.
It's always good to see you, you beautiful human being. We were just talking beforehand about your wild success of expanding out of poker, and I actually didn't know you were that expansive. And I think it's really cool to see that poker can go in so many different directions now. And the people who, you get to a point where you've made enough money in poker, you have all the freedom and all the stuff. And then a lot of people that kind of fit with this decision, a little fork in the road. Do I expand or do I just keep plowing along, playing the high rollers, doing everything that I was doing? And vast majority of people, they take the keep plowing along. And a few people leave poker and a few people expand through poker. And you're going for the expansive.
Let me just redo the intro. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm on Charlie Carrel's podcast today.
I can't help myself, man.
It's all good. I think that will therefore lead to some very interesting conversations. Yeah, we can talk about this, obviously, whatever we're doing on the side right now. But what I would like to know right now, what keeps you up at night in these days?
Keeps me up at night? I mean... When you go through a phase of your life, when one goes through a phase of their life where they open their heart and the sensitivities of the world, your heart is more attuned to them, to the good and the bad and the ugly and the beautiful. Then if one isn't on top of things and having a certain level of awareness and a certain level of distance between those phenomena in yourself, then anything can really creep in. And so usually I sleep like a baby, but every now and again, if my energy drops and I allow my ego to start identifying, oh, this is what's wrong with the world, this is what's right, then I can lay in bed and just think. It could be like homelessness, because I'm working in that sector. Or it could just be like, how are we going to change the clothing sector? Or, how is the masculine going to heal itself through the, divine feminine, stuff like that. So I wouldn't say there's any particular point, but when the heart is open, you're playing some high stakes life.
You just mentioned your ego. And I find this a fascinating topic because from my experience, for myself and the people around me, the ego can be extremely helpful and the ego can be extremely destructive. Can you speak a little bit about situations where you would consider for yourself where the ego was really helpful for you? And maybe challenges you had to overcome or you're still overcoming where you identify the ego as ego gets getting a little bit too much in my way here.
Yeah, it depends how you're defining ego, because in some ways
that's where it starts.
As like, oh, this is who I am. Like, I'm Charlie and I've got this long hair and I'm articulate or I'm sensitive or I'm whatever it is. And in that sense, that identity, you want to let that flourish. You want to let that be. You want to let that be the most powerful version of itself that you can. But in kind of Vedic, Hindu, Eastern, Buddhist philosophy, the ego they more see as like anything that's separate from the divine, and that separation is never going to be a positive thing. So you can still have this powerful expression of the beingness of this body and this mind, but you don't identify it as you so much. So in some ways, that the beingness of Charlie and in other ways, just the pure ego. When I was younger, when I was hardcore, just trying to crush everybody's soul because I was trying to prove to the world that I was worthy of love. That kept me going, full of Red Bull and testosterone and whatever else I had flowing through me. And I probably wouldn't have found it within myself to play for 12 plus hours a day unless I had that. But now I don't try and let the ego grow. I try to let the expression of who I am grow without identifying this is me,
So would you say that this behavior of drinking Red Bull, staying up late, studying, trying to crush your opponents. Was it something bad? Like, did it originate from some bad motivations to compensate, to cope with whatever happened to you in your childhood? Or was it coming more from scarcity, or was it coming from abundance?
I definitely wasn't studying, but
Or
I think the rest of it.
no, you listen. I understand. You would say not the way people see studying, but you were studying. If you observe your opponents,
I was thinking about.
If you, everyone has a different way of studying. I think the way you succeeded, it's rare, and I would not recommend it to many. Whether you have a specific gift, I remember Fedor was very similar to that as well. He would just jump grinding in a 5K in cash game, and he would be winning. And what the fuck are you doing? And wouldn't have studied any preflop charts for cash game, but he was very good at extrapolating from like what happened in tournament to now not having antes and adjusting ranges and exploiting the pool, and therefore making up with, let's say, some leaks in theory, but extremely good at exploiting and adjusting and learning really quickly. But I would say that applies to very few. So I think you were still studying. It was just a different way of studying.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I was always thinking, I was literally dreaming about poker most nights. So yeah, it was coming from a place of like looking back. Like there was obviously something that, you know, you could say your soul or your psyche is drawn towards something that, you know, is meant for you. And when I first played poker, I was like, oh, this is the thing. Like this is my thing. Okay, I get it now. But underneath that, or aside that, or on top of that, or whatever it is, there was this pure drive to prove that I was worthy of validation. I was worthy of love, because I'd been up to that point when I was 19. I'd just been bullied, abused, physically, sexually, emotionally for like pretty much most of my life. And then I found this game that when I got success in it, people were like, oh, you're pretty cool, man. And that, I mean, I wasn't aware of it at the time because I was actually very disconnected from my emotions, but that's addictive. And so with this pure passion and love for the game, there was also this motivation to be like, I'm going to prove to the world that I'm the best. I don't need anyone else's help. And I think that was partly why I didn't study too much from other people, is because I was just like, I'm just going to do this myself. And I've had that attitude with chess. I've had it with spirituality. I've had it with so many things. And it's, it was, I wouldn't call it a bad place, but it wasn't coming from a pure place.
Do you think, and if it goes too deep, or if my questions might be a little bit insensitive, just let me know. But do you think that this drive to keep going, to maybe not learn from others and trying to do it for yourself, that maybe it also has to do with a little bit of distrusting human beings, that you say, if I learn from this person, I don't know the intentions, or just, you know, obviously when you had a rough childhood, that it's really hard to open up, right, and to show vulnerability, and just wondering, would you think that you just had also an issue with trusting people, and therefore you tried to do it on your own?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And yeah, I think that made me think about something that I haven't thought about before. So thank you. Like I understand that my relationship with authority was very damaged before, especially because of like church and school and all of these, like, looking back, morons trying to tell me what truth was about the universe or about science or whatever it was. But also, yeah, what you made me think of there is like, yeah, I when you're a baby and when you're a kid and a child, it's like you look up to the authority figures of your parents. And in my case, you know, there was somebody, my grandfather, who sexually abused me as well. And when you have that just assumed authority, because you're the baby and they're the adults, and that trust is broken for whatever abusive reason, then yeah, I guess the relationship with authority is really marred.
Yeah. And how do you think you managed today? What was your path of realizing, oh, wait a minute, all that success, all that validation isn't necessarily all good? Because the way I have learned it, that sometimes bad leads into something good leads into something bad. You know, someone hurts someone and has epiphany, is like, oh, I don't never want to do this anymore, and opens it for charity and helps 500 people. So it's like a constant flow. That's how I learned it from my mentors. You know, that it's a constant and something good. We see it these days, right? Like for the sake of not variety, but what do you call it? Equality, and people hide behind it and have dark agendas, and we can talk about that later as well. But yeah, we will. But how would you say you managed with that today, looking back, and where are you on your journey? I really don't like, because everyone defines enlightenment for themselves, right? But let's say on your journey to enlightenment, to discover yourself, to find out who you really are, what you really want, what are the things you just accept the way they are, this is you, and what are the things, all right, I need to work on it, and where do you draw the line, where do you generate the wisdom from? So as you can see, I have a lot of questions when it comes to that, but where would you say you are on that journey right now? Yeah.
I feel the shape of the question for sure.
Yeah. Because you have to use a lot of terms that everyone defines differently and are very generic, right? Yeah. So you have to add a lot of context.
Yeah, you can't use precision. You just throw an energy ball at something, like catch,
Yeah.
So now I've spent a lot of time healing. I've spent, like, if you could have had like a camera on the wall of my apartments and houses over the last years, you would have seen some crazy stuff. I'm talking like screaming and agony and releasing and jumping up and down and shaking, genuinely like trauma. Really, you can release it through shaking, and so many meditations, so much chanting, so much just anything that I could do therapeutically to get so much of the layers of pain that were in me and are in basically everybody that gets born into this harsh reality that we're in, out of me. And so it has given me a lot of perspective and insight, because each time you release that layer, there comes an understanding. You're like, oh, I'm ready to release that now, because I realize now that I was getting my validation from this, or I realized that I'm now ready to release, and you can do that. There's lots of ways of doing it. And so now my relationship with getting validation from other people and other things, it's still not perfect, but it's very good. Like I could be hated by the entire world, and I would be pretty okay. Which for me, is somebody that used to be so affected by even like a YouTube comment, that it feels like I've climbed a mountain to get to this point. And when it comes to kind of relationship with other authorities or people, I've just had to learn to humble myself over and over again in 100 different ways. I've got a spiritual teacher who is way smarter than me, way more powerful than me, way more knowledgeable than me. And whenever I've tried to fight back against authority, she's not angry. She's not, she's just like, hey, no, this is what's right. This is what's wrong. And then she'll prove me, and then I'll test it, and I'll be skeptical, and she's always right. And that's happened in many other cases in life as well. And so humility has been a big thing over the last maybe 7 years.
I mean, validation is to a certain degree completely normal, right? Like a lot of the stuff, we want to belong. Human beings are supposed to be very social creatures that like to be in groups. Relationships are important. So I think to a certain degree, getting the validation is something that is also, it is, I think, important, wherever you get it from. But obviously, if it starts transitioning into narcissistic traits, as we see it also in today's social media, the age of social media. And I even sometimes discovered where I'm like, making this post, a piece of content, I'm like, am I really doing this that aligns with my mission of just simply helping poker players and helping them to escape the rat race? Because that's, for those who remember the very first video of where I just released my ugly face to the public, it's been my mission ever since to just simply show people, hey, you can make a living from playing cards. So it should just show you that there are really no options, and you can do so much more than just working your job. if you're not happy with that. If you're happy with your job, cool. Like, I have a lot of respect for that. But I would say 70, 80, 60%, majority of people are not happy in their regular jobs.
They convince themselves they are happy.
They're lying to themselves very often as well, yeah. And then I'm asking myself, all right, this is just now trying to get validation. You know, and I think this awareness is what I'm striving for, and I'm still struggling a lot with it. And I think it's a constant challenge to being able to differentiate between what's healthy validation, and of course it feels amazing when you have success and people come, wow, well done. But then at the same time to have that self-awareness to be like, all right, who are the people that you would eat with also when times are very bad, you know, and would have your back? And who are the ones that just join your table because you're just very successful? But the moment there's no food on the table, they let you hanging. And
bro, as a dude with money, you'll know this. You become very sensitive to who's who.
Yeah,
like the people that are sniveling around for money and the people who are genuinely interested in you.
Yeah.
Over time, you grow a thick skin and you grow a discernment that is probably similar to like beautiful women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people see beautiful women and rich men or high status men as kind of similar. Like, oh, can I squeeze something out of this person? And you have to really find the people that actually look and see the deeper version of you.
Yeah. And the pay you have to price for it is that other people perceive you as arrogant. But it's a very simple protection mechanism. You've probably been screwed over. I've been screwed over. Like, it's just at the beginning you're not aware, because we are all so naive. We think human beings just want the best for each other, right? You grind your way up and you become successful, you make money, and other people start noticing it, and then they get closer to you, but they don't want the best for you. They just want your money, and then they screw you over in whatever shape and forms it is. And
that was a big red pill moment for me. Because I was never a jealous person in this lifetime. I was like never particularly like wanting to drag other people down. I'm sure it came up, but like in poker, maybe okay, I'll get competitive, but it was never like I want this person to fail, even if it was somebody I didn't like. I was like, I'm kind of happy for their success, and to realize that some people are in like the absolute depths of depravity when it comes to other people succeeding, and it was such a shock to me.
Yeah.
Where, I had success. I went on YouTube and there were some people that they just want to hate.
Yeah.
And they think they've got 12,000 rationalizations of why you're a sucky person. But actually it's just that you make them feel bad about themselves because you've achieved what they want to achieve.
Yeah, no, totally. And as you just mentioned at the beginning, that was for me when I started being active on social media. People are making all these bad comments. I was like, why? I just want to play poker, and I'm just teaching my strategies, you know? You can choose to. I'm not forcing anyone, even if you don't like it. Like,
people are so mean.
Yeah, and
I'm sure we're both tough to it now, but at first they used to really
Yeah. So that was a completely new word to me. I was like, why would you even comment? Why would you even, I mean, to be honest. And then along the way, I've also had good business mentors and good business coaches, and they also taught me that haters never win. Because even if they write something really bad, it's good for you, because the algorithm cannot differentiate between a bad comment and a good comment. So even if you make a bad comment and you make yourself feel good, oh, I showed this person, I as a creator, I win. Thank you for the engagement. So the best piece of advice as a creator, maybe someone who wants to start streaming, be grateful for it, because the YouTube algorithm or Instagram algorithm sees a comment. Comment means interesting video, I'm going to push it to more people. That's why rage baiting these days is so popular, something I'm also trying to stay away. We talked about it, diluting your audience. It will kill your social media channels. In the short term, it might appear good. Even if you get just 800 views on an educational video, imagine a room of 800 people, 200 people, 47 people listening to you giving poker tips. That's fucking awesome. Like 20K people, 50K people watching you ranting on another person or another cheating scandal. Those are not the people that
it's a really funny image of somebody sitting in like Madison Square Garden, like this huge stadium, 30,000 people or whatever it is, and just imagining sitting on the stage and be like, this guy's a bitch, and everyone's like, yeah, that guy is a bitch.
Yeah.
That's kind of what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
When they're rage baiting.
So
I always do that when I'm streaming, even if I only have like 200 or 300 people watching at the time. I'm like, that's so many people.
That's so much more valuable than if you would stream in front of 3,000 or 5,000 people to whatever topic, politics, renting, like all this drama. I mean, there's certainly also good streamers who are like smart and educational, but at the end of the day, let's see if this streamer switches to a topic and talks about, hey, I would like to share some tips on how I got successful. Boom, view count 50.
And talking of rage baiting, can I push the conversation towards the direction of when people thought that you were rage baiting quite recently? I can't wait to speak to you about it. It was such a wild couple of days to just watch poker Twitter.
Yeah, it was.
Do you want to give people the breakdown, or shall I?
I mean, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'd love to. So, all right, guys, sit down for this one. Take a sip of your tea. This is how this goes down. Sometimes creators will post things on Instagram stories because people that watch your Instagram.
Maybe for the sake of explain to some people, because especially in poker, we have maybe a little bit from the older audience what rage baiting actually is. Let's define it first.
I'll weave that in.
Okay, cool.
Great. Yeah. So Ben's sitting there. He's doing a Q&A with his audience. I've done tons of them myself. And you're answering a bunch of different questions. And somebody asks you about why women aren't succeeding so much in poker as men. And Ben's reaction was like, I know this is going to anger a lot of people. The Karens out there are probably going to get mad. But there are some biological distinctions between men and women, some tendencies between men and women psychologically that men just have the upper hand in a bunch of different ways.
I said they're simply more competitive.
Yeah. So completely normal thing to say. But this then got screenshotted and posted on Twitter. And because that then blew up, everyone accused Ben of rage baiting, which rage baiting is essentially just like throwing out a hook, like a little maggot on a fishing rod of rage, so all the fish come and flock to it, so you get more attention, so you get more views and things like that. Which Instagram stories is like the least rage baity place to ever do anything ever. So it was complete non sequitur.
There was even a guy who accused this in the comments, and I tried to explain him. The worst format to choose to get views and attention is Instagram stories.
Yeah, because there's no virality in it.
And he kept arguing with me. Yeah.
And so people in the poker world went bananas at you, and it was a lot of women and a lot of men speaking for women, brother, saying that Ben was a sexist, a misogynist, and it didn't just stop there. It wasn't just like, hey, I think this is sexist. It's like, he's a bad person, and then it just got mean. Like, there are a few, like, I think it was, I'd edit this out if it was wrong, I think it was Jamie Kerstetter that was like, if you could see how much we're bitching about this guy in our group chats, something like that. And it's like, the level of vitriol and hatred and misandry that was directed at you, like sexism against men, was insane.
Yeah.
And because of the dynamics of the social media platforms at the moment, people really didn't want to speak too much on your side because being called sexist sucks. I did. I definitely.
Thank you, brother.
I
appreciate it.
Because I've been toughened up. I've been cancelled a few times myself, and it's just one of these things where the people that were speaking, I know most of them weren't coming from a good place. They're not coming from a place of truly caring about equality. It's coming from a place of hurt and anger and pain and whatever else it is. And you were just making a very normal and true point. Men tend to be more competitive, biologically, psychologically, socially, whatever the reasons are. And there are huge differences between the way that men and women interact. And I'll go a step further if people want to cancel me on this. And I said this in a rant, but smartest person I've ever met, most powerful person I've ever met, most intellectual poker player I've ever met, all women. And that's a coincidence. It doesn't have to be like that. It just happens to be that in my life, these are the people that I've met. I take so much inspiration from women in my life. I've also been a poker coach and coached thousands of people in groups or one-on-one. And on average, men are better at poker than women. I'm just going to put it out there. socially, I
How
think
horrible
something
of you.
happened. I know, it's an awful thing for me to say. But then the women that do manage to make it, obviously they've got characteristics. And here's the thing, you don't need to look at groups. Like, to separate it into men and women to begin with, it can be useful to, like, how do we get more women in poker? How do we make them feel more comfortable? Because harassment's definitely a huge thing in poker for women. But at the same time, when you're actually just looking at an individual, you don't need to be like, oh, this is a woman, so she's going to be good, or she's going to suck, or she's going to be this. Just like, this is a person. She happens to be intellectual. She happens to be competitive.
Yeah.
And so this is something that really tickles my balls when it comes to the rage online, is that people just they can't separate this identity politics, this group fighting, men versus women, black versus white. And I like that we're having these conversations, because as poker players, we're meant to be pretty smart, we're not meant to be the dumbest fish in the barrel. And we can at least raise the bar of expectations of how nuanced these discussions can be.
I have to fully agree with you. And I think, I certainly haven't read every single comment, but everything I have read had nothing to do with my initial points. Even some people tried to be really smart-ass about, oh yeah, because you also have more men participating in tournaments. Well, exactly my point, right? Because I said you're not going to find, maybe it's Chrissy B, which I have a lot of respect for. And I have something really interesting to say about that, what I noticed, because I was analyzing her hand and I saw an interview, and then I will share that. Remind me of that. It's super interesting.
Oh, well. And
then people, yeah, you dummy, you don't even understand basic statistics. If in a tournament of 1,000 players, there are 900 men, obviously there are going to be more men in the top ranking. Well, you're just proving my point. Men are more competitive signing up for it. Now then you have people saying, well, in live tournaments, there's more harassment for women. That's why they're not signing up for. That is the reason. All right, cool. Then I guess if we look at other games like online poker, it should draw a different picture. I don't find a woman in the top 100. Again, which I think is nothing bad. It's just that men, we can sit there 12 months, not going out, not seeing sunlight, pissing in a bottle.
We're disgusting.
We're disgusting human beings, and that leads to those results. And I think women don't understand, if we have a goal in mind, we're turning into freaking psychopaths. They just don't understand that. Have you seen this?
Our mummies didn't love us so much that we need to prove ourselves so hard.
There was something interesting that Alex Hormozy said. It's not that we have something that someone else does not have when it comes to becoming incredibly successful. It's something we're lacking. We just can't stop. We have this constant, we're not doing enough. We need to do more. We need to prove ourselves more. We need more validation. Your point, it comes from a bad childhood. I also had my things I need to deal with, my trauma. And a lot of guys I speak to, it somewhere stems from something. And then we see an opportunity to become successful, to get this validation. And it's different for everyone. And then we just turn into this freaking grinding in the bottle, pissing psychopath, grinding one saw with another. Or back in the days, it was a piece of paper and writing down the ranges, right? And we just couldn't stop. We would be dreaming, living. I didn't care about girls. I just did my studies on the side. And then the rest just went into poker. And if I look at my poker friends back in the days, whether it was Fedor, whether it was Julian, whether it was Rainer, whether it was Koray, world champions, they were all so dedicated. Maybe everyone had a bit of different level of dedication, but sometimes we sacrificed our social life for it in order to get a better life in the future. And I think this is what women maybe don't understand, that the level of craziness and dedication we can get. And this is what I mean by simply being a little bit more competitive. And the thing is, I don't even argue that there's certain social constructs, right? The way your boy, you're doing this, your girl, you're doing this. And maybe it has gotten too far. Maybe there are certain things that need to be reconsidered. And everyone has a different opinion on that. And it's definitely a conversation we can have. But until today, nobody can prove me or bring up any rational arguments why in online poker that there are no entry barriers. If that's really an argument, why don't we see more women succeeding in online poker? Why is the same in esports? There was one guy saying, yeah, there's harassment. Have you ever been playing competitive ranked lobbies? As a guy, if you don't shoot, you're being insulted. If you have an accent, there's racism. You're being like bullied all the time. Like, it's crazy. It's just, I feel like women always think it's just for them. Yeah, there is sexism. Yes, 100%. And it needs to be tackled, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be fixed. Women have their problem, men have their problem. And this is just something that I think is, as you mentioned, that men are simply more competitive. So we endure these things. We just grind until we succeed. And we're getting...
And there are some women that are just as competitive. It's just less frequent. And I think it's really important to point out, it's like psychological differences stem from social differences, and social differences stem from psychological differences. So people were trying to make the point that they were disaggregating those two things. They're like, it's not psychological, it's just purely social. Well, it's like when social things happen on scale, that causes psychological differences between men and women on average. And so you can't have one without the other. So if you think that there are social things that need to be tackled, then there are going to be psychological differences within these things.
Yeah.
And so where this all stems from, as you and I both know, is the what people call the woke movement. I don't care what we call it. The movement that has been described as wokeness.
Yeah.
A large part of it was trying to combine and unify men and women, but in a completely non-truthful way. And I think a lot of people had good intentions trying to bring people together, but they were painting men and women as absolutely equal psychologically. And if you said that to a Buddhist or a shaman from Brazil, they'd be like, what? And it wouldn't even be like, hey, that's just not true. It'd be like, it could be offensive to a lot of them, because like, well, no, the divine feminine, as they would say it, or the yin, or the divine masculine, or the yang, they have different qualities, and men and women from their perspective have different ratios of masculinity and femininity. And that's to be celebrated, not commiserated.
Yeah.
Men are meant to have different types of intelligence, and women are meant to have other types of intelligence. Women are meant to have a deeper intuition for the world, like a more whole intuition. Women are meant to be more in tune with nature and more in tune with their bodies and sensuality and all of these things. And this is why so many of the most intelligent people I've ever met have been women. And it's not always that they can exactly rationalize. Some of them can, like my teacher, she's way more rational than me, but it's not like they can always exactly rationalize their perspective. But when you alchemize the lessons that they brought down through their feminine intuition, it's so much deeper and so much grander than anything that you'll get from the kind of masculine intuition.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't men and women. I've got feminine intuition, so do you. We both got masculine. Everyone's got both. But it's just ratios, and it's just averages, it's probabilities and things like that. And that's where you see at the highest levels of esports, the highest levels of chess, like top 100 chess players in the world, all men.
Yeah.
And because when you have a certain ratio of this masculine and feminine energy, and you have certain proclivities of intellect, and you take that to the extremes, like Jordan Peterson was always saying, like you take these small differences on the averages to the extremes, then you see all of the most aggressive people in the world tend to be men. All of the hyper intellectuals tend to be men. All of the dumbest people in the world tend to be men.
100%. Yeah.
And so this is one of the reasons that you'll see these things.
Yeah. And what really annoys me is then I've had from both sides people message. To be honest, what I also have to mention, the enormous amount of people messaging me and saying, Ben, I see it exactly like you. Big creators, big names. I just don't want to get involved in that shit. But keep it up, man. Yeah. And
I had that so much during my cancellations as well.
Yeah. You know what my problem is, that next to all the studies and people trying to, my study here, my study there, we could come on a podcast and break down hundreds of studies. Just let's use logic, right? Answer me the question, what are the entry barriers for women competing at online poker or similar games? As I mentioned with esports, we men, we're also facing racism, bullying. Like everyone who has been playing, whether it's ranked PUBG or ranked Valorant, whatever, like every second game is toxic as fuck for men. as well.
And we get fewer people sticking up for us if we get attacked.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've noticed that. And I will say that on average, I think women experience more harassment than men in poker.
Yeah.
Just having female friends that, especially attractive women, and more conventionally unattractive women as well. They get harassed for their looks and stuff like that. But just like sexual harassment is pretty extreme. Like it's really, really extreme. And I had a female streamer. I mentioned this in the post that I was standing up for you. I have a friend who was a female streamer, and another streamer it was a Russian guy. He was literally masturbating on his stream, watching her stream. And I don't know who this is, and if I did, I would definitely say his name. But like that type of thing is wild. And I've had another friend who, whenever she went to a casino, she would get like followed home, or people would just comment on her tits and stuff like that. So there are some huge issues.
And you know what the lefties and the wokies, and I understand that my story maybe erected some emotions, but the thing is, you can just predict it. You can predict their behavior of being irrational, being loud, yelling, accusing you of as a racist, white supremacist, misogynist, whatever. Like, it's so predictable. Like, because that's all they have, right? It's so simple. It's so easy to predict. And you know what the problem is? What they don't understand, that behavior of men doing this kind of shit is if they cannot handle their emotions, if they're weak, right? If they have these urges and they have to live it out. They cannot control it anymore. It's like, oh, she is hot. Yeah, maybe I should not jerk off to it on stream, or maybe I should not say these things on stream, right? A masculine, strong man, stoic man, that masculinity that is so frowned upon is what keeps men like thinking about their actions, like, oh, there's a hot woman, but I better don't say, I just embrace it, I look at her and then I move on. This motherfucker just cut me off the street, I would like to punch him in the face, but we're not gonna do that, right? That anger, being attractive to a woman, or whatever it is, we just be tilt poker, facing a bad beat. I would like now to punt it off, but I would lose my bankroll, so we're not doing it. We're playing our A game. So just constantly execute your A game, whether you're in live, maybe a solid B game some days, or solid C game when we don't have our best days, but we just do it regardless. And this is what those lefties and wokies don't want to understand, that everything bad comes from people not being able to manage and control their emotions. We also experience those emotions, but we can control it. We say, all right, we better don't do that. Otherwise, it will have some drastic repercussions. And being aggressive or being able to work really hard, and these are not bad things. I think a man needs to be mentally strong, ideally also physically strong. But this is what they don't want to understand. Just, act on your feelings, body positivity and all that crap. It's like, you see what happens, people stabbing each other because they just can't help themselves anymore. We just get so brain rotten, weak.
Let me make a confession.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Carrel, got a little bit woke. Before woke was even a thing, and here's how it happened. I got kind of, and I wasn't the best cult member, but I definitely got. And so about 10 years ago, I decided that I wanted to be a good person, which sounds crazy to most people, but I was a nihilist before. I didn't believe in good and bad. And so about 10 years ago, I changed my mind, and I was like, actually, I feel like the best way to live life is to be a good person. Thank God I didn't do anything awful by that point, but it was hopefully something inside of me was telling me not to. And I looked to a friend, and I won't say it. He was a he back then. She is now a she/a they. Right? It's whatever. I'll call him he because it was past.
But it's like a really he, or
biological man.
Okay.
Turned non-binary, turned woman, don't know what they are now. But a very good friend of mine, hyper rational, hyper compassionate, hyper open, very traumatized person. But I looked to them as a beacon of rationality and compassion and ethics as well. And they were like super into the woke before woke was even a talking point. So I got, not only did I get all of the expressions from him, but he also had a wife who was also a they, I think. They were a they, yeah. And they were studying gender something at a PhD level. So I was getting like cutting edge theory brought down to me, and it sounded very convincing. And at first I was like, yeah, okay, this makes sense, you know, like people, you know, I can see, and you start seeing everything through like the lens of man and woman. You see, oh, this is actually really unfair on women, how I'm like doing this small thing, like, you know, I might be walking too fast on the street when women on average are shorter, and it's like, you know, it's just little tiny things like that. And it's everywhere, because when you look, when we have as a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the same for race, and same for all things like that. And so there was this attitude that I had, that I was like, oh, I feel like I have to kind of like call people out. That's like the terminology that they use. Like, I have to call people out to like bring justice back into the world. And little did I know that back then I was in no position to be calling anybody out for anything, because I was so traumatized myself, so unaware of my own tendencies, and that a lot of the joy the validation I got from calling people out was coming from a hurt place. And it took me maybe a year to really get out of that again. I started really questioning, like granulating the details, and then I realized quickly that when you disagree with people that are in this woke ideological mindset, they don't stay kind. As soon as you have like a small disagreement about anything, and you're like, actually, no, I really feel like you're wrong about this, then they turn into a monster. And I've seen it happen to many, many people that I used to call friends over the years. And that, you know, it's the Jungian thing, that you can kind of like become an archetype. Like, this idea can exist, and you can embody it so much that you kind of become it, and you're now just speaking as a puppet for this idea. And this is what's happening with so many of the people that have been taken over by the woke mindset, is that they're now just a puppet for this energy, this concept, this idea that floats through them. It's like the whole idea of like, people don't have thoughts, thoughts have people, which is a Jungian quote. And it's so true. And you watch it manifest in real life. And then if you disagree with this concept, with this bubble, this concept of energy, and say, actually, I think this little bit is wrong, their entire being just goes, whoop, and it's like, you're the bad guy, because this is who I am. And then when I saw the extremity of the reaction of the wokeness, then I was like, okay, this isn't who I am. I'm gonna see if I can find ethics some other place. But what it has done is it's given me that year, or however long it was, gave me such a good insight into how these people's minds work, because I got a little tickle from the woke, the virus.
Yeah. And there are just so many discrepancies between what they want and what they demand. Is this full acceptance, and the moment you don't share the same opinion, it just turns into this hostility and like absolute kind of disgust towards the other person, right? And it's just labeled as you're racist, you're misogynist, you're sexist, and this is what really frustrates me. That people these days use these terms as left and right just to discredit you. There's no foundation. It's just to discredit you, to make yourself feel better. And that's a very normal phenomena in psychology, in human evolution, right? In order to get this attention or validation, a very common coping mechanism is to discredit others. If you discredit others, you put yourself above them. It makes you feel better. And you can see it today. And I have to say, even a guy like Justin Bonomo, when he attacks me as a misogynist and sexist, and I saw his comments, I was like, yeah, you're not even addressing my points. And to be honest, you're one of the reasons why in these days I feel very sorry for real victims of misogyny, sexism, and because they're not being taken serious anymore. Who in these days, if you're being called racist, 10 years ago, you were like, fuck, what did I say? It's like, and tell me something new. It just feels
I'll speak on behalf of Justin for a sec, because I agree with the criticisms that you have of him, but I will say I do like that he's willing to put himself out there for things that he believes in.
I honestly, I have a lot of respect for that. I 100% agree. So you can always have multiple truths being true at one or multiple facts true at one.
Watching him go for the Palestine-Israel thing on Twitter is, I mean, it's inspirational to some extent. I think he's not coming from like a healed place. I think he's coming from a very disarmed and hurt place. And I don't think that's a place that people should be speaking for the truth.
Yeah.
Usually.
No.
But I will say that, I mean, he you know, people go through these phases. That we went through a BLM phase, we went through a trans phase, we went through a Ukraine phase, and you'll get people that are like, I support the thing, and I support the next thing, but when if somebody genuinely cares, then they stick with that thing, and they don't just post a black square on their Instagram and pretend they care about black people. They might actually go out and try and help people on like all humans, or maybe just a particular demographic of humans.
Funny. Sorry, go ahead.
Whole life.
Yeah.
No, I'm done.
No.
You're
good. It just reminded me of the Chrissy B thing. I don't know if you've noticed.
I was just about to remind you about the Chrissy B thing.
You know, when she was running deep, and by the way, I think she's a fantastic I'm not just saying it to make myself look. I was one of the few that defended her on Twitter. Not just because but I like her. I like the way she played the hands. I genuinely liked it. I think they were good plays. And people were just attacking her for punting away her terminal life. And you know, all the women that attacked me for being a misogynist were like, go girl, go Chrissy, show them. Then she punted it off, and she said in an interview, she was asked, why does she think so few women run deep or are successful? And she basically said what I said.
Damn.
Suddenly there was no from... I didn't see Vanessa Kate saying, oh, GG, unlucky, you out. Everyone was silent. All the women that attacked me and cheered for her were silent. Maybe there were a few, again, I'm not, but in these 1 or 2 weeks, the Twitter feed suggests you to everything, you scroll through it, and some of it, I'm not going to be like, I didn't care, I didn't read everything. Yes, I read a lot. And then I noticed, because everyone, even from small creators, your feed is just full with WSOP stuff. And they were like, GG, Chrissy B, like, what a pun. And some were like, oh, well played. Like, and I was like, I noticed, like, I don't see any of the women that attacked me to cheer you up and be like, it's not about women. It's just about their opinion. And they don't care if you're a woman or if you're a guy. And if you're a woman that they're trying to defend, they cut you out. Like, they don't care. You don't agree with our opinion? We're fighting for women in poker? Well, as long as you have our opinion, then you're welcome. I was like,
it's like when the woke people see like a black guy criticizing Black Lives Matter, and it's kind of short circuit. They're like, wait, what?
and then just I mean, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe they didn't log in on Twitter, But the moment she was out and she gave that interview, suddenly it was very silent on Twitter. And I think, there's a reason why she's one of the few women that can really keep up with the high stakes scene.
She's got a strong relationship with masculine energy. Like she's got feminine energy as well, but her drive is like, it's a very, like, when she's playing poker, it's a very masculine energy that I see from her.
Yeah.
And I think it's what keeps her so driven in the gym as well. And with many other things as well. It's like she just has that. And a lot of people were probably like, this isn't masculine energy, but like, if you ask the Buddhists what they think masculine energy, it'll be different from what Western psychologists mean. But anyway, the way that I see it is that she's got a very strong relationship with both femininity and masculinity. So she can understand her emotions. She can understand what's going on in her internal. And, I'm sure she's on her period or something. She'd be a lot more stoic about it than a lot of people would, which is a hormonal blast that we just can't understand. And by the way, that's one example that I was just shocked that nobody ever points out when they're like, there's no advantage that men have over women. I have female friends that cannot do anything for a whole week because they're just like bent over in agony, screaming in pain because their periods are just so painful. And I got a female friend that she can't play poker during that week because she just plays on her e-game and punts off every single hand. And if you're going to say that isn't a problem for women, then you're the sexist, because that is a huge problem for women. Yeah. But I think Chrissy B just has a really fine relationship with both of those two polarities, and it helps her become like an absolute beast at the table. I played against her a bunch.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of guys these days turning an absolute sims and just trying to do everything to get some validation from women, and they don't even recognize that what's happening there, right? Just like, oh, something is said against women, let's jump on it and let's retweet and let's make a comment, dude. She's not gonna get you for that. Like, go out, meet some women in real life, talk to some women. Just because you're white knighting in the internet doesn't make you more attractive to women.
Yeah, and I will say that, speaking on behalf of the white knights out there, as a man who used to really struggle getting any kind of female validation, I grew up very like conventionally unattractive, very unconfident, all of these things. The despair that you can feel, or one can feel as a lonely man, cannot be. I mean, you can't underestimate it. It is crazy how many just millions, tens, hundreds of millions, billions of men there are out there that are just lonely.
Yeah.
And most men don't get a second glance from women because the Pareto distribution, again, like only a small percentage of men get most of the attention from most of the women. And it's brutal out there. Like, it's really, really brutal. And so I can understand why people turn into trolls. I can understand why people turn into white knights, or whatever thing that they find to create identity for themselves that can give them this like quick burst of social hierarchy. But it's a paper tiger. It doesn't last.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Maybe I'm a little bit harsh, and I think maybe a lot of people, and I think also for a lot of women, because it's a phenomenon that a lot of men, turn out to be lonely. Just if you do the statistics, it has to happen to women as well, because less men go out, approach women, or let's say attempt to find a woman and just go get the quick fix, whether it's Pornhub or whatever platform to just get the next dopamine kick. And I remember when I moved to England, when I lived in Brighton, and I moved from Germany, and I was without my friends. I was just with some poker buddies, and I realized I'm such a piece of shit when it comes to meeting women. Like, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. Like, for real, I had no fucking clue. The only reason, because I met girls in my old hometown, was because through my friends. Like someone introduced someone, joined our youth circle of friends, and then you just, by coincidence, it happened to be being in a relationship. And then when I moved to Brighton and we went out and parties, and like after 3, 4, 5 months, like, would be nice to also meet some women. But I don't know how. I had no fucking clue. It's tough, yeah, man. Like, for sure.
To be smooth and to be a man that's meant to be approaching women, or meant to be, confident in a room full of women, when not only is it tough to just be smooth in the first place, but also because society teaches you from an extremely young age that your worth is based on how women are attracted to you. And so it's like you're playing high stakes. Every time you go and speak to a woman, your entire worth, unless you've done the healing to overcome that, or you've been lucky enough to have a particularly good upbringing, is just on the fucking line every single time you go and speak to a woman. That's why so many men just crack.
Yeah.
Because that rejection, that potential rejection, is just devastating.
100%. Like, this fear of rejection is just absolutely... I remember we would start doing those comfort zone challenges just to crush our ego. We would do
what?
Like these comfort zone challenges. There was a guy from...
I used to do that all the time. What kind of challenges did you do?
Just lying on the ground, being judged for minutes, standing in front of a fancy restaurant and just looking like a fucking idiot. Just like...
I did that stuff all the time,
Yeah.
dude. I used to have this game that I played with my friends when I started young, when I was a teenager, called, I've forgotten what it was, but essentially you had to embarrass the other person as much as possible. So you'd walk past and be like, bro, you actually had sex with your cousin? She was 14, stuff like that. And just like the worst things you could say. And then whoever taps out first, loses. And I'm so glad that I did that, because whenever I felt in me, I don't want to say the word porn, or I don't want to say the word sex in front of these old people. It's not harassing them. It's just I don't even want to say the word out loud because I'll be embarrassed. Then I made myself say it.
Mm.
And I had a friend that we did this on the tube once. We played the game, and it eventually got us into us screaming at each other, being like, "I can't believe you fucked your sister. I only did it because," stuff like that. And then just went out giggling after the tube stop, but we kept it up the whole way.
Yeah.
And it's like not the purest way of getting it done, but it's you have to break through these barriers, because as a German man, as an English man, the social conditioning tells you have to be kind of proper.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah.
It's rare to find somebody that's broken through that.
Yeah. And at some point for us, it wasn't even about meeting women anymore. It was just fascinating with the shit you can do and people not caring. We would engage in conversations. So there was this guy had a course with like different challenges you were supposed to do. And one challenge was you go to people, you ask for advice because you're invited to a birthday from your ex-girlfriend. You don't know which kind of present. So you're supposed to go to couples, and then you ask them if they have a tip, like what would be appropriate for what present to buy. And then you would start poking your nose, and like you go like more extreme, and then the other hand. And you stay as long as they leave or say something. And sometimes they would talk to you for like 10 minutes and they wouldn't care. And they at the end, then the ultimate end post was like to like this and then give them the hand and say goodbye.
That's too far. I can't do that. I don't want to do that.
No, but the thing is, obviously, it's disgusting, but you're not hurting anyone, and you get to learn that nobody cares. They might be judge you for a minute, and they have a funny story to tell, but it's not about those comfort zone challenges or meeting someone. It's about just do whatever the fuck you want that fulfills you and makes you happy, and stop caring less. And I understand this advice, stop caring about others. Yeah, you can watch one YouTube video after another and one motivational quote, but you never really experienced that if you've never really done that. And you feel like
shaking a man.
If you have exactly no, but if you have never really tried it out, and you go, you talk to that girl, or you ask for that raise at your job, or you have this uncomfortable conversation, and then you realize it's still fine. Like I'm still living, And then building up on those experiences, then that's where you internalize, like, people really don't care. I can do whatever the fuck, unless you're not harming it. This is nothing illegal, right? But you can do whatever the fuck you want.
The attractive woman one is tough. And I've noticed this, that even, I'm not looking to date them, but even, like, I can go up and speak to anybody now. Like, I'm confident enough, I can literally go and speak to anybody. But I feel when you go up and speak to an attractive woman, that there's the assumed purpose of you trying to have sex with them. And you either have to be like, hello, I'm not trying to have sex with you, I'm just saying hello for whatever reason, or you just acknowledge the fact that they're going to probably feel that throughout the entire conversation until there's a reason not to. And if you do want to actually have sex with them, or you're like open to it, it's not like I only want to have sex, but hey, I like this person's energy or whatever it is, then you're also you have to like stand out from the crowd of creeps that only want to have sex with them and only see him as a piece of meat that they can get validation from. And so it's like this dynamic that's built up over time is so crazy in Western worlds. And when I was in Bali, it's so different. Like I would say I would smile at people in the street, they'd always smile back, and I would be like, "Kamuja gig" to a woman, and it would be like, "You are beautiful," like in a female way,
Yeah.
And every time they're like, "Oh, thank you so much." But if you go and do that in London, you go, "You're beautiful." Most people are like, "Thanks." It's like it's such a different thing because they haven't got the generations of kind of creepy men coming up to them all the time and trying to have sex with them all the time in Bali.
I think I know what you're saying. I would slightly disagree on a few things because I think that creepiness comes from hiding your attention. So even if there's a girl that you just find incredible hot and you just go there, listen, like, I find you super beautiful and just want to come over, say hi. From my experience, I don't have research, I don't have science. My sources trust me, bro.
I don't have a PhD and pick up off the street.
That most don't have a problem with that. That's our nature. Our attraction comes from looks. Right? We find a woman attractive, we go over and say hi, ideally, right? And then we get to know her.
I will say it depends on what kind of dude you are as well, because confidence is everything, and if you feel comfortable, other people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But also there is this thing, it's like if you're attractive, women are more open to you.
But even if you're not confident, even if you go there, listen, like I'm super nervous. I don't do this a lot. But I just want to come over and say, they find that endearing. The thing
That's true.
just be confident with feeling nervous, not being confident. And that's all. But if you start making up shit, some pickup lines, and that's where women are so much more intelligent than we can ever imagine. They figure out the shit. If you're not genuine, if you come up with, oh, where's the post? And they can see that you're trying to hit on them. And that's creepy. And that's the creepy part.
Yeah.
All right, staring at them and they can sense it. They can sense that you kind of want to talk to them, but you don't go, and that creates this feeling of uncomfortableness. And
bro, I would love to see you hang out in Bali with me, because I hang out in Ubud, which is like the more spiritual side of Bali, and all of the tour, like the amount of nonsense you get from people who are like, I'm a shaman, I'm a healer, I'm a this, I'm a that, and at the bottom of it is just a lot of men trying to fuck. Like so much of it. And I'll sit there in a restaurant and I'll watch this tantra healer guy approach this beautiful woman who's a little bit doe-eyed and naive, and I'll just get to watch the dance between the two. But there's so much nonsense within the spiritual community. We need people like you to come in, like people that are more rational, because there's so much beauty and there's so much truth as well in these spiritual endeavors. But the people that are generally drawn to these positions of power and things like that, they tend to just be creeps.
Yeah. I think in general, life is very simple. Becoming successful is very simple. It's very hard to execute. But when it comes to dating, what I figured out, and I went through the whole process. I've been working with so many coaches and mentors until I realized it comes down to two things. You just go and talk to people and you're confident about it. You don't need a pickup line. You just say hello, and then you say whatever. It's also, don't say anything nice about her hair. She already heard it 100 times. No, she hasn't. She has never heard it the way you are saying it. It's for the first time. Don't try to come up with a fancy compliment or with a joke. Maybe you're not fucking funny. Maybe you're boring ass nerd, and that's also totally cool. And you're just yourself. And if you're into math, if you're a nerd, if you're a geek.
I know it sounds silly.
No. You are my boyfriend. Nothing you do is silly to me.
It's not about what you are. It's about how you feel about it. And if you try to play and act tough and, being the James Bond and some guru dating coach trying to teach you some 67 methods to become irresistible, to make her make out with you on the first date, dude, you're lost. It's all a scam. It's literally all a scam. All you need is just repetition to learn. You're not dying. Even if for the first 20 times, a woman will laugh at you or she will reject you. Obviously, we have been so wired of staying down and being nice to women and not like create any chaos or whatsoever. But just like going out there and just going to someone and say, hey, I really like you. I really would like to get to know you better. What's going on? Where are you from? Just having a normal conversation is totally enough. And if you can say that with confidence, and even if you're not confident, just then speak it out. Just say, I'm freaking out like crazy.
Bro, I'm really nervous, but you seem really pretty.
But I don't want to regret not having approached you. I just want to come over and say hi. And I can
I've actually never done stuff like that to meet women. But I can see that being like a super fine way of doing it if it's coming from like a good place.
And the women I talked to just confirmed it to me. That's actually quite endearing. But it gets this when there's this, when they know that this guy has a different agenda than what he's saying, that creates this creepiness. This creates this like...
Same thing when people ask me for money. I like it when people are upfront, like, hey, I'm really struggling. Can I borrow it? And please don't message me, everybody, because whenever I say this stuff online, everybody messages me asking me for money. I get way too much of it. But I'll say yes to some people if it feels like that, they're coming from a genuine place. But I'll get so many people especially in like the spiritual world, and then they find out I have money through like Instagram or whatever. So I had this one guy come up to me in a restaurant and just be like, "Hey man, how have you been?" And instantly I was like, "He's gonna ask me for money," and it took him 15 minutes to get to the point.
Yeah.
And automatically I'm just shut down.
Yeah.
It's like you're pretending.
Yeah.
You're faking interest in who I am just to try and get something.
It's the same when I don't know if you've been in the situation, you had a friend, but you haven't had contact in a year or two, maybe not the best friend. And then you need something from that friend, and you're like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird now. Just say it. Just say, listen, man, we haven't talked to 2 years. I didn't reach out to you. I didn't like ask you how you are. I know it's fucking weird, but I need this from you. Is it okay? Yeah. There is no other way if you're trying to be like, and how has been your day? And how is this? And like, by the way, I need an introduction to this guy. And then just say, listen, man, like, I owe you something. I know it's audacious. I know you might think. I'm like, just speak it out. Just be honest. And then most of the time, it's not a problem. But if they do it like you just described, no fucking way. No.
Have you got a close circle of friends in your life?
Yeah.
Or close group? Or close few friends? Or
yeah. That's why I'm also... You barely see me outside. I'm not interested in live poker because very often I also associate it with getting to know people. And like, but at this point, I have such a strong group of friends. I don't want to get to know people.
Have you got like a group, or is it like separated people?
It's a group. Yeah, in my old hometown.
Oh, nice. I haven't had a group like that in a long time. What kind of people do you tend to surround yourself with?
People that are really honest. People that can tell me. But it comes from a genuine place of caring. Like, Ben, you suck, man. You wanted to achieve this. Why are you slacking here? Like, that's not you. It's like something going on in my life. I have blind spots and they can call it out. I don't need people to tell me, oh, you're so good. Obviously, like, if we're successful, we're cheering for each other. But most of the time, risking the friendship for the other person to improve, that's the kind of mindset that very few have.
I like that.
Yeah.
Being able to tell a hard truth.
Yeah.
Is it mostly men or is it a mix?
Yeah. I don't need female friends.
Really? Most of my friends are female.
No. There's nothing I can I have my girlfriend. I get like if I need female energy, I have her. It's like maybe before I met her, I had more female friends, but after I met her, it was just like, no.
Interesting. Is that like a rule that you have, or just something that kind of happened?
No, never a rule. I just realized it's just like I met her. I have amazing friends. I mean, the thing is, they have girlfriends, and like we're kind of friends, but it's like I would meet them if I meet the guys. If we have a group event and they bring their wives and they bring their girlfriends, and then. But I would never call, hey, let's go for a coffee. No, I don't have the time for that. And I have my guys. Like, whatever problem I have, I discuss it with them. And also, my girlfriend knows me the best. There's no woman in the world that would know better. And I know she wants the best for me. I can trust her the most.
Interesting. Yeah, I can have a partner, but still having female friends for me has been a huge part of my life. Like just being able to have people that I can go back and forth with, have the insight without having that romantic entanglement for men and women is just so important for me. But I get different insights from a female friend than I would from like a wife.
Just from my experience, I just sometimes feel like, I have a question for you. Do you think, again, it's more like a ratio thing, sample size. It's not like 100% or 0%. Do you think men understand better women than women understand men? Even though maybe we really struggle understanding each other, but do you think there's one side that understands the other side better?
I think men understand women on a more rational level, but I think intuitively women understand men more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the deeper understanding is the one that women would have on average.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that type of understanding is more prone to delusion, because the men, it might be like a more surface level thing, but because it's very kind of surface level, straightforward and rational, it doesn't get it's like a strong foundation. It doesn't get blown to the wind so much, and that's why you don't see as many men just lose their mind and be like, my ex is a piece of terrible shit. You know, it's like not so much like that.
Interesting.
It's a lot more straightforward. But I do feel that women tend to just have a better read on people in general.
I think so too. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I would say that even though I would say that we still, men also, like sometimes the conversations I have, especially with students, when it's about, and very often it's actually not so much about poker, but it's more about their family, relationships, they're stuck in something, how can they make it work? And not understanding women. So this is a question I'm asking myself lately. Have you seen this TikTok trend where the woman, and I've seen it on Instagram, but I think it stemmed from TikTok, and the woman goes to the men asking if we think about the Roman empires.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I was so in disbelief because also when, you know, I spoke to some friends and also my girlfriend was like, when I think about something, you know, very often we think about like legacy things or like something 200 years ago. And she was like, I really thought you're not thinking about something when you say, I don't think about something. Or she's like, what are you thinking? And I'm like, nothing. But like, I don't want to explain it because it's even so complex for my own brain. And that I just...
I'm not following. Are you saying you do spend a lot of time thinking about things like the Roman Empire? Or
yeah, like Second World War, or how is mankind looking in 200 years like? And I think for minutes. And then if someone asks me, what are you thinking about? I just say nothing. So because I just want this to remain in my peace.
And I know the feeling. I've had different areas of history, and at the moment it's been Christian theology that I just obsess with, and it's to the level of like 2 to 4 hours a day listening to scholars debate each other or listening to lectures and things like that, getting in the nitty gritty of what specific words mean in the Bible and things like that. Okay. And that level of obsession with like a time in history and then how things progress, like I've had that with different empires, like the Ottoman Empire went through a big obsession like that as well. I can definitely relate to that. Never had a Roman Empire phase.
I mean, the Roman Empire stands for big time frames for whatever happened in history, and you're thinking it through, and it's more like about complex things. Sometimes it's about business, and I'm new release or a new marketing strategy, and I'm thinking about it for weeks, you know. And then she asked me, and I would have to explain for an hour just to give all the context, you know. It's and then I just say nothing, and she said like, oh yes, sometimes I really thought you guys have the ability to not think about something and shut off our brain.
Yeah, like, no, I'm not meditating for shit.
No, like
I'm a mess.
You don't want to see what the fuck is going up there. And that's why I started wondering and asking, because my goal, and I think where a lot of the problems originate from, is that we just don't understand each other. You know, when the man might not give as much as attention as she wants, but it comes from a good place of trying to build something, to become better. It's a dark place we're living in the world, and I think we men were very scared. It comes from a place of scaredness, like to not end up in a shitty place, and we do this for our families.
Especially when you got a kid.
Yeah, or you envision in the future to have, even if you don't have kids right now. I think a lot of men really have noble motives. And I feel like women very often don't understand that and don't appreciate that. Now, on the other hand, obviously, women care a little bit more about security and stability, right? So men don't understand that. It's like, and then it creates this conflict. And I think a big part is just like, okay, how do men roll and how do women roll? What does she need? What does a man need? So we can align better. And that's what I'm asking myself lately. And so that's why I was wondering how you think about it, like which side does understand the other side better. And
I think it's probably relatively equal. It's just
different areas.
In each relationship, it's going to be different as well. Like you get some relationships where a really smart guy will be dating a really dumb girl because she's hot, or vice versa. and they're going to have different dynamics to what you and your partner have and what me and my partner, it's just a million different iterations of things as well. And this is why I think it's so important. It's like it's good to look at the lens of men versus women, or masculine versus feminine, or whatever you want to do, but then you have to granulate it down to the individuals and see this person. Like, I'm not a man, you're not a man. Like, with the word I means so much more than what a man can encapsulate. If you believe in souls, or if you believe in psyches, if you believe in energies, if you believe in anything, the sentence "I am a man" is non-factual, because the word "I" is just, you're so much more than that.
Yeah.
So when you're getting down to like individualized relationships, you have to be on the level of the individual. You have to see them as the whole. And this is what I think what causes. That's why I know what causes so much trouble in relationships, is that we have these obsessions with she's a woman, I'm a man, and then you create this idea, and they teach this in Buddhism. It's like when you have this concept, this is a chair, this is a table, this concept, this bubble of this idea of what a chair is, what a table is, it gets created in your brain, and then whenever you think of table or whenever you think of woman, this bubble is kind of activated. And then you instantly have connotations about this is what a woman is, before even getting to know what this woman is, or before even getting to know what the chair is like, or anything like that. And part of the Buddhist psychological literature is to disseminate, to get rid of, not disseminate, to get rid of these concepts built up, these images that are built up in your mind. And so this is why, for me, why it's so important to see a person and actually to see them without any images, without any concepts, without any ideas of them preceding them.
But I like to keep things very practical, especially for viewers that might be new and maybe we're a bit skeptical.
Are we about to dumb it down for the dummies?
No, because I can resonate with a lot of them. I remember my first discovery was Eckhart Tolle and New Earth back in the days, and I started thinking about things. Well, they exist. What? I have a self-awareness, It was more like, all right, tilting is bad, so don't do it. It was a lot less about. But I also had a very rational upbringing. My dad, former military, so everything was just like, all right, this is your mission, this is your duty, you just do it, you don't ask why. But obviously on your journey to also discover some of the reasons why we behave in a certain way, and it helps to evolve and on your journey to enlightenment, or you want to call it. And because you just mentioned something very interesting, I think there's a lot of truth in it, even though some people might think this is just some hocus pocus. Yeah, I get it. But how do we get there? So if we apply some practical steps, right? It's not like, oh, let's this is not a chair, this is something bigger, or this. It essentially comes down to the labeling, right? Labeling things and judging them, and then just putting them in boxes and categorizing, right? That's what we human do. And I think and I'm wondering, where does it come from? It's just the brain, some form of trying to save energy because the world is so complex. So we need to kind of
we have brains that are designed for survival. We see snake. We don't have time to figure out what kind of snake it is, and we don't have time to even figure out if it is a snake. We just fucking, But when we move our minds in higher levels and higher frequencies, and science has shown that this is possible with delta waves and whatever else, you can bring yourself out of that survival mechanism, and you can start to granulate, and you can start to understand the truer nature of what things are. A man that's been really influential for me in this has been there's a guy called J. Krishnamurti, and he's an Indian philosopher. He's like the most skeptical guru, but he never called himself a guru that's ever existed. He's like true empiricist, true rationalist, true hyper skeptical about everything in a beautiful way. But he's full of love, and he's full of compassion, and his way, his idea of breaking down these barriers of images that are created, to just, if you're looking at a tree, a scientist might look at a tree and be like, oh, it's the consigulus configula, or whatever the Latin name is going to, and there's leaves do this and there's things do that. But his idea is, the idea that I really resonate with is that to really see something, you have to quieten the mind. And you have to open the heart.
Yeah.
Because if you're not if your brain is like, oh, it's a this, it's a that, it's a this, it's a that, you're just putting it in these boxes and simplifying this entire thing. And with people, with women, with men, it's the same thing. If I can see you as you, and I don't think, oh, this is Ben CB, that already has a connotation in my head. Oh, this is a man that already has a connotation in my head. I just look at you, and I get a feeling deeply within myself, this is who you are. Then I'm suddenly seeing you, and I'm not just seeing all of these preconceptions that I have.
What is, since you have been on this journey for very long, what's like the best or most eye-opening or most helpful piece of advice you've given from the people, maybe a mentor, maybe a shaman, whatever it is, where it was really like, fucking hell, yeah, there's a lot of truth in it.
Two. I mean, a lot.
Oh, if it's two, it's two. Right? Just
yeah, two. One. I'll go for this one first. I was 22, or 21, 22, and I was in an ayahuasca ceremony, my first ever ayahuasca ceremony. And I haven't been on many. It changed my life, this one. And I was an atheist, a rationalist, a naturalist, a nihilist, or whatever else. It's a mathematically minded, skeptical motherfucker. And I took ayahuasca, being like, whatever, I was already into psychedelics. I was like, whatever, let's do this thing. Surrounded by hippies and like a couple of shamans. Looking back, these shamans were fantastic. And the first hour, people were like, is this even doing anything to you? Because I was just sitting there, talking to ayahuasca in my head, essentially debating the spirit of ayahuasca. And I didn't believe in this, but I was like, this is what's happening in my head. My monologue has become a dialogue. I'll ask it a question and I'll get a yes. And people say this doesn't usually happen, but I needed this to crack my head open. And so I would start asking any questions, and it'd be yes or it'd be no, and it'd be yes or it'd be no. I'd be like, okay, well, I want to ask some more nuanced questions, so we have to define terms. So I had to define probably. I had to define probably not. I had to define almost definitely, and I used probabilistic thinking with all the information that I have available within my soul and psyche, whatever you want to call it. How likely is it that this is going to be true? And we had all of these definitions, and that finally cracked me open. And I had 3 questions that I wanted answering that day. I wanted to know, should I be with my girlfriend? Shout out to Amy, my ex-girlfriend. Should I tell her that I cheated on her? Sorry, Amy. She knows this. We've dealt with it. And the third one was, do I want to dedicate my life to philanthropy and charity? And after I had this conversation with ayahuasca, I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'll trust that something's happening in my brain right now that I can't explain, because these answers are coming quicker than my brain can normally handle, and they all are correct. Like I can like post-rationalize them and see that they're correct. So I was like, okay, something weird's going on. So sorry
to interrupt you. How does this manifest the answers you get? Like you just see the words, or you hear a voice, or
it's like a penetrative thought. It's like a thought that doesn't feel like me. And I didn't. When you feel like I'm gonna think of this, there was no that. It was no choice. It was just snap second.
Okay.
But very, very similar to a thought, unless you have like a discernment, which now I do. So I have more ayahuasca. The shamans bring me up for some more ayahuasca, and they suggest that I lay down. And I'm laying down, and I'm all right. Let's tackle this one at a time. I'm like you. Let's be pragmatic about this. I've got my missions. So I'm like, do I want to be with my girlfriend? So I'm like, what do? We come up with a list of pros and a list of cons. And so I did that. I came up with, here are all the reasons why, and here are the reasons why not. And I was like, okay, I need to weight them out of 10. We'll give them a rating out of 10 and try and do that. And eventually I got halfway down the con list, and I was like, I think this is too complicated for my intellect to decide. There are too many variables, because not only do I have to rate them out of 10, I have to rate them out of 10 and then adjust for time as well, because some are going to be more important in 5 years. And I was like, this is actually way too many variables for my intellect to even begin to calculate. And as soon as I had that thought, literally as soon as I have that thought, I get a tap on my foot, and my eyes were closed. It's like 30 of us in the room. Super, super low chances that this would happen coincidentally. I get a tap on my foot, and it's Shaman Dan, DHAN. He looks me in the eye, and he does this like feather cleansing. Feels really cool. I was like, all right, Dan, all right, whatever. Did believe in that stuff. And he looks me in the eyes and goes, Charlie, you're a very smart young man, but you must learn not to only think with your head, but think with your heart. And I was like, what? That's all I said. I go, what? And he turns around. He walked off to go help someone else. And he turns over his shoulder and he goes, you know what I mean. I was like, I know exactly what you mean, but how does he know that I know what he means? Like that, to me, it made no sense. And it took me many years to figure out what was going on there, like on an actual scientific way. But then I lay down and I just felt into, okay, do I want to be with Amy? Let's imagine a world where I'm with her. Okay, that feels pretty good. Let's imagine a world where I'm not with her. Ooh, actually, that doesn't feel so good. And then in my mind, I was like, I actually just made that decision. My heart decided for me. I didn't need to calculate all these things. I didn't need to rationalize all these things. My heart knew what it wanted. And I was like, boom, second question. Do I tell her that I cheated on her? Ooh, okay, let's imagine a world where I've told her. It's like, okay, this kind of sucks, but it feels fine. Let's imagine a world where I haven't told her. And I wasn't expecting this answer, but the answer was like, oh no, that feels off. Because there's deception. There's something, she smells it in the air. There's something that's just wrong. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll tell her then. And then I spent the next 20 minutes crying, but like, and I never cried back then as well, which was, yeah, good old ayahuasca. And then I told her, and she dumped me, and it broke my heart for like a year, and it changed me into a person who never cheated. And I made sure I never lied after that as well. So that whole story, in essence, is me saying, it's so important to understand the difference between intuition and intellect. It's so important to know when to rationalize something and when to feel what's right for you. And when you're deciding what job you want to go to, when you're deciding who you want to date, who's going to be your friend, don't try and think your way. So sure, okay, if they're dangerous or if there's certain reasons you need to think. Sure. But when the decision's coming, quieten the mind, open the heart, take a deep breath, and feel what's right for you. And that for me is a life changer.
Powerful.
Shout out to Dan.
Have you done any other ayahuasca retreats ever since?
One. And now those days are very likely behind me, because the types of meditation, the spiritual path that I'm on gets very disturbed by psychedelics and by drugs. So I stay very sober.
Yeah, I've never done that.
I advise most people not to. But I was very lucky that I had good shamans. But the damage that can happen on a spiritual, metaphysical, psychological, physical level from bad shamans, and that means bad intentions, which is a lot of them, incompetent, which is most of them as well. I see people who have just lost themselves completely.
Yeah, I think wherever there's a lot of need and desperation, it will unfortunately always be taken advantage of. I think a lot of people do it because they're in a point in life where they need guidance, they need help, they need answers, right? And then they're very easy victims for that kind of stuff. And it's not just ayahuasca. I mean, I've seen it in the dating scene as well. Oh, yeah. In the whole pickup scene, right? They're desperate to find women. They don't know what to do, and then they just fall for like a dude. On the boot camps I've been, it's just like fucking.
Do you actually went on dating boot camps?
Yeah, and yeah.
What where was that coming from? Were you coming from a place of hurt and desperation, or was it?
No, like for me, first I did it all by myself, but it was more like discovering where does this fear of rejection come from. So it quickly changed into this, let's do dumb shit and let's just completely break it. That's what I mean. Like when I see something that is helping me, I get completely soaked in. And it's not about, it went from I want to get to meet women into, wait, why am I so afraid of rejection? And I pivot more towards, let's break that. And then I get...
How is your fear of rejection now?
What is that?
Yeah, I feel you.
Like... I think that has been the most powerful thing I've ever done in my life. Those 1 or 2 years, shout out to my former roommate Niels. We did this together. And at some point I was just like... There was one story that was really interesting where we went to a club and I didn't want to go. I was his wingman. And he was feeling a bit down, a bit unmotivated. And this is the thing where you actually start craving less to go out because you don't need to prove yourself. And then also my girlfriend, I met her just by coincidence. I saw her and I just went and said hi, I would like to get to know you. And that's where it all started. And it like went from
tell me about that interaction. So where were you?
In the club, you mean?
Yeah, like how did you meet her?
I met her on the beach. I saw her. I took a shower. I like just saw her, and you still have these excuses. Because we went out partying the night before. I was with a friend. I have a headache and I'm all wet. She's not gonna like me. And I was like, but the funny thing is, you increase that space of a certain thought and your reaction, and that's super powerful because then I can jump in and say, "Shut the fuck up. She's gorgeous." So then your rational thinking takes over, and I just went to her and I said, "I think you're gorgeous. I just want to come over, say hi." And she was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then I was like, "Hi, I'm Ben. She's from Bulgaria. I'm from Germany." She guessed I would be from the UK. I was like, "What?"
How dare you?
How dare you?
That's disgusting.
We had a juice. We chatted for 30 minutes. We exchanged numbers. We went on a date or two in Tel Aviv, and then I still lived in Stockholm, and I intended to move to Austria anyway. Then she lived in Vienna, so we met again, and things developed from there. From just one random conversation on the beach. And what I'm trying to say is that it went completely away from, oh, let's go out, let's talk to people, let's go in a club, let's just like, and this was one of the nights where we went out and he wanted to, I could feel he didn't really want to go out either. And he was like, would you come with me and push me a bit? Because he wanted to stay sharp in the game, you know? Yeah, but like I could realize for both of us is like we went on this discovery of like dating and meeting people, and but then it took this turn towards let's break our fear of rejection. And then once we realized, we're like, all right, when the opportunity comes, we can just be there. You know, we didn't need to go out, but from time to time, I already had my girlfriend, so I had zero interest in going out, but I just wanted to be his wingman. You know, sometimes when you club and you approach a group of women. And it might be counterintuitive to some people. It's like, am I not against nightclubs? Yeah, I am. And I was very, very, very few times in the nightclub in my 20s. And when I went, it was just for a purpose. I wouldn't drink. It was just talking to people, breaking my fear of rejection. I hated going into nightclubs in my, let's say, from mid-20s. It was just literally, I want to get better at my social skills. I don't care about the music. I don't care about dancing. I'll be home early. So it was not for me the typical nightclub feeling.
If I asked you to, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to say if I asked you to dance now or to sing, would you feel comfortable?
Yeah, but I wouldn't do it because it just would create dumb shit out of it.
I mean, we're on a podcast, so I wouldn't expect it. But like, would you feel comfortable like dancing in front of like on the street in Bulgaria?
Yeah. 100%. You can test me next time, but let's bet money. No, maybe not, but let's bet money. Never do something for free that you're good at. Yeah.
I'll have a dance off with you.
I mean, dancing was probably one of the least embarrassing things we did.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Because that's still entertainment, you know? You have to do the things where people really think you're a fucking idiot.
Oh yeah.
Because if you dance, some people like start laughing and maybe start dancing with you, you know, you're like,
you're picking your nose and looking embarrassed about it, then then people they think you're something else. Yeah.
So we were in the club, and I don't even know why we started the story, but anyway, let me finish this. Because the story is so funny. It's not like a crazy dating story or anything, right? It's more when you stay genuine and when you stay honest with yourself that it doesn't really matter. And he went out and we were taking rounds and he was like, I'm not feeling it. Like, let's go home. And I was like, come, we're here now. I took my time. I didn't want to go either. At least make it worth. Like, go talk to some people, even if it's dude. Let's be a bit social. Maybe we get to know someone. And it's like, no, I don't know what to say. Like, it's like, but it's not that he was afraid. It's just like, it wasn't really thrilling anymore. And I was playing at this time. I was playing a game on my iPhone. It's like with robots and shit. I kind of liked it. I don't know why. So I was like, you know what? Listen, there is a group. I introduce you, and I just took my phone because I was bored. I was playing my robot game, and this was one of the, I think, I don't want to call it the final the final parts of my journey. But I just went there and I talked to this group and I just showed them my game. I was like, hey guys, do you know this game? And like, I didn't give a fuck if I'm rejected or not. I'm like, here, this is this robot game. Do you know this game? Like, it's super exciting. It's like super geek nerd shit,
Yeah.
And they were like, oh no. But the thing, what happened is, they could sense, I don't give a fuck. I'm not creepy. I don't care what they think. And it somehow created this kind of like, I don't have a gender. I don't fucking care. And from there, I brought the group over, talked to my former roommate, and then I left. And I was like, here, talk to them. I don't care. And this is what I mean with whatever you like. If it's a fucking robot game, if you're playing a heads up on your phone in a club for play money, and you don't know what to talk about that, go to there like, look, I'm playing this game here. Do you know? Are you into poker? Have you ever played? Talk about your interests. Talk about what excites you. And if there are people that like it, they will resonate. If there are people that don't like it, but maybe they're interested in what you're doing, you can also find a connection. And if they're not interested, well, move on to the next. And so it's not so much about what you say. It's not so much about what you do. It's about staying true to yourself. And then you find the people that can resonate with it. And also you save everyone's time. If you make up stories, if you pretend someone that you're not, you're just attracting the wrong people. You spend time with them for years, and then you realize, fuck, it was just a waste of time.
There's also a case, and I 100% agree with what you're saying, by the way. There's also a case of learning how to speak confidently and practicing, because there's a difference. But like, if someone asks you what do you do for a living, and you run a couple of bit, you could say a bunch of things. But let's say you're just a professional poker player. There's a big difference between answering, I'm a poker player, versus I'm a professional poker player. I have been for the last 12 years, or I've been a professional poker player for the last 15 years, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And people feel that, and I've been on both ends, especially if I'm feeling kind of insecure or like whatever, tired or whatever it is. If I go, I'm a poker player, people are like, oh, okay. But if you're like, I'm a professional poker player, you just say it with confidence and authority and not being ashamed of yourself, people react with a lot more curiosity. Like, oh, okay, that's okay. Tell me about that. And they might have their preconceptions and stuff, but you can very quickly, if you speak highly of yourself in an articulate way, which takes practice, then people, they get involved in whatever you're dishing out. You could say that you love polishing stones, like you said, just whatever your thing is. Like for me, I'll be sitting in I have these really funny moments where I usually wear suits nowadays because I'm going to kind of like my businessman charity phase, and I have to be these meetings of politicians and whatnot. So I'll be going into these like fancy restaurants by myself in a suit, and everyone's like, hello sir, very nice to meet you sir, and everyone's speaking to me like I'm a guy that wears suits. And then I'll order my steak or whatever else, and I'll be sitting there, and then I'll start singing mantra to my steak, because that's what I do before I eat. And I instantly I get these moments where everyone looks at me like, wait, what? You're not one of us? Well, he tricked me. What the heck? But it's like, as long as you're not doing it with insecurity, people continue to be cool.
Yeah.
People continue to respect you. But if I was like, instantly the dynamic has changed.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. But the thing is, yes, it needs practice, but it goes a lot faster if you practice what is true for yourself than making up bullshit and trying to practice your lies and your false identity. Because then you will never really learn what it means to speak your truth or being yourself and being okay with rejection. Because if you just make up shit, you can live behind this lie of, if you get rejected, oh, they're rejecting a false picture of me. So you never have that growth, right? You will have that growth. This is me. This is what I believe in. This is what you want to do. You get laughed at. All right. You take the next step of leveling up, right? It's like, and the more you experience it, at some point you reach the plateau where it's like, yeah, it always hurts a little bit, but it's not really affecting you, right? It's the same when I say, Charlie, your blue shirt is disgustingly ugly. You're like, yeah, you know it's not true because you don't have a blue shirt, right? And this is what most people don't understand, that every time something triggers you, there's always a truth in it. Always. It's universal truth, and I'm literally using always. I might say something to you, and then you laugh about it. You go to your friend. He called me like, my blue shirt is ugly. You can still talk about it, but it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your mood. It doesn't take any mental space. It literally doesn't make you angry. It doesn't make you envious. It doesn't make you nothing, right? I might say, Charlie, you're freaking nit at poker, and like insult you for it. It wouldn't affect you because you know you're not in it. But if I would start maybe berating your place for being too aggressive or too bluffy, you'll be like,
that's a little bit too close to the home.
Yeah.
I will say on another layer to that is like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a true fact that triggers you, but it can be like you're insecure about, like, you know, if you're insecure about being a dumb guy, you could be a super smart guy, but you're insecure about being dumb. Then if someone calls you dumb, then you'll get triggered. So it can either be that there's truth to it, that you subconsciously know that what you're saying, like you kind of know it's true. Maybe I am too aggressive in certain spots. That can trigger people. But it's also like, if you've had a lifetime of people calling you dumb or calling you creepy or whatever it is, and even if you're not, and somebody then says it, then that's a signal, that triggers a signal being like, here's something to heal, bro.
Yeah. You know what triggers me? When people say, I'm not beating the games anymore, I'm too bad for the games, because I have one losing session and I'm telling this shit myself. So it doesn't need to be, the data can prove the opposite, even though I've been losing now quite a lot for the past months. I'm on a pretty big downswing. So technically for the past months, yes, I'm not beating the games.
Finally, Variance has caught up with Ben CB. You heard it first. Finally.
But so let's say if it's not true, but I'm also believing it. So if they say it, I might say, no, like, what do you mean? Like, I've been winning for 10 years, right? And you can
get in the comments being like, actually.
Yeah, actually. And you can see that my mood changes and the way I type, or maybe I talk on stream. I'm also a human being, right? But the thing is, the difference after 5 minutes or 10 minutes the next day, I'm like, actually, there is some truth in it. If there wouldn't be zero truth, and it has nothing to do with the real truth, it's just with my truth, what I believe to be true. And I encourage everyone, whatever triggers you, look into it. That's where you find the growth. If someone says, Ben, you're a racist, there's 0.0, or I'm a misogynist, nothing of this has bothered me. Nothing. Because there's zero truth in it. What triggers me is how it affects other people and real victims of these things, because they're diluting it. They're making this term less powerful, right? They're taking the strength out of it, so people don't really care when they're being told it, and they're inflationing. Does it make sense to inflating these terms, right? It's this is stuff that really concerns me, but I think there's legitimate concerns about it. But if people attack you, very often you're like confused and like, right? If you react with confusion, it's more like you're trying to understand them. It's like, okay, what did they say? Like, where does this come from? That is usually a sign that it isn't really truth. But if you react with actually, and your brain, you start with actually, it's like,
I've been the actually guy too many times. Every now and again, I'll still get caught. And almost never now, but for so many years, I'd be the guy with my poker, with my singing, with whatever, you know, because I've been harassed online, and it happened. I get harassed online every day of my life. Like I don't get a day off. Yeah. And so that's given me a tough skin that I'm so grateful for. And I'm sure you've had your more than fair share of it as well. But that, you know, it's like you get, because of this, it's like you have to hyper-analyze everything about yourself. You go on stream and you talk about your family, and then someone's like, you're a shitty this, and you're like, now I have to actually think if that's true. Or, you know, I post my singing. People are like, you suck at singing. You're like, no, actually I have to think if this is true. Yeah. And sometimes there's truth to it. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you're a fucking sick singer. Yeah. You know, but yeah, the poker skill one is a really big one, because unlike chess, we don't have ratings. And so, you know, in chess world, people can say, okay, you know, Levy Rosman's sucks at chess, but he's got a 2900 rating. The guy commenting has a 600 rating. or 2,800 on chess.com.
Yeah.
And but in poker, fucking Bob 321, he can be like, "Hey Charlie, that was a terrible check shove on the river because my solver says so, or because I just feel that way."
Yeah.
And then he gets 50 likes from people who are also playing 2-0. And there's just you, the old sucker, being like, "Actually, it makes sense because of this part of his range." But it's like, to explain that is just impossible. They will need a decade of experience. And there's the thing, he might even be wrong, because if you showed the hand to a bunch of other high stakes pros, they might disagree.
Yeah.
And nobody knows. Nobody knows what the best answer is in most poker situations, because even a solver can't tell you what's best against the human. And so it's poker's a weird one where it really tests your humility. We have to be like, I'm strong in what I believe or what I think to be true, but I can also be wrong. And it's a really tough one.
Yeah. That's why I think good mentors are very, very powerful. And I understand these days people, when they hear the term coaches and mentors, think of scammers. I think it's a very limited mindset, because if you find really good ones, I'm happy. I'm not regretting spending tens of thousands of euros on bad mentors or bad coaches. That I'm not saying they scammed me, but I just realized they ain't for me. But it was needed for me to identify what is it that I don't need, so I could find those really good ones. And I'm not sure even it was Ayed or someone else. We were talking about it. And with mentors, I really like to talk about things that I can't figure out. It's like, it's in my brain. It's like things that concern me, that worry me, that trigger me. And then we talk about it. It's like, why does this trigger me? And one part of it is my, like, very competitive drive. Sometimes in the evening, not being able to turn off the PC, fucking up my sleep, and being worried about people thinking I'm bad at poker. I'm like, listen, like, I won so much money. Like, why? I have the proof that's not. And then he asked me, okay, Ben, what do you do after a losing session? Do you just go peaceful to sleep? No, man. Like, I think I suck at poker and I turned into a losing player. Yeah. So you also believe that you're bad at poker if you have a losing session? Yeah. So if the other guy believes it, it's bad. But if you believe it, it's good. You both believe it, that you suck at poker. I'm like, yeah, that's right. So
I'm the internet troll all along.
Yeah, I'm even a troll to myself, like I'm telling this to myself. And then once you get a little bit of a different perspective on things, and it's so good to have mentors that are 10, 15, 20 years ahead. And I really like to work with people that have also been competitive at something. And Ayed, for example, has been working with an incredible amount of MMA fighters and also poker players. So I think there's not a single guy that has been looking and picking up brains that have been exactly in the same spot as I am. And he's like, and it feels like you're alone with this. It's like, dude, almost every competitive person has to deal with that. So chill the fuck out. You're not that special. And that kind of like minimizes the problem. It's good to have this conversation. And then for a couple months, maybe years, it's not that this problem disappears, but the moment I see this and triggers me, I'm like, yeah, he's right. I'm also thinking this about myself, So then it can't really bother you anymore. And the moment there was a very, very, very powerful quote that I read that said, if there's something that concerns you, triggers you, or bothers you for more than 15 seconds, it's always on you. Yeah. And then don't take the 15 seconds. Now, like this, what about 17 seconds, right? Understand the message. And I think this is very powerful. And
it is. It's a brutal thing to say, but it's a true thing to say. But it's a brutal thing. Imagine if somebody's just been like raped their whole life. Your editor will have to bleep that word for YouTube, by the way.
And then this applies for 95% of those daily problems we have that aren't really problems, but we make them big problems.
But it actually applies to that awful circumstance as well, because
I don't have any. I've never experienced this. Not near my circle of friends. Like, out of respect, it's a horrible thing. Like you can talk about it.
I'm allowed to speak about it.
I'm happy. I'm happy to hear your opinion on it. But just I like to talk about things where I think I have something to say, but it's just something I have no imagination how this has to feel. So yeah, just go on.
So, I've been sexually abused a decent amount in my life, and it's something that there were moments where I'd be with a woman and I would get triggered, or even with a man, not sexually, but just around a man, and I would get triggered. And the natural tendency for myself was to be like, oh, that's okay. You know, it's okay that I got triggered. And in some ways, of course, it's okay. That's a natural phenomenon. But in that moment where I was triggered, there's still that lesson to be pulled out. And there's still that part of me that felt like I was a victim, because I was a victim. But I'm not that person anymore. I don't need to identify with that person anymore. And it's such an extreme case. But if we can show that it's true for the extremities, then we can show that it's true for everything.
Yeah.
And in these moments where I've been triggered by somebody's actions and they weren't hurting me, or maybe they did something small that's bad, they crossed a boundary in a particular way, and all of these emotions came up from when I was a kid, all of this pain, and trust me, like it's a lot of pain, but it doesn't make it okay for me to then associate that person that did this small thing wrong with all of the pain that's within me. And those are the moments that really make or break a man or a woman. Can you be filled with agony and grief about things that have happened in your life and still say, this is my lesson? Or in Buddhism, you say, this is my sadhana. This is my path. This is the thing that, you know, you could say your soul has chosen if you believe in that, or this is just the life that I've been dealt. And in those moments of excruciating agony, if you can be the person that's still centered and still just like, okay, this is what I'm going to learn. This is how I'm going to find gratitude for these experiences. Then you'll be a king. You'll be a queen. You'll be somebody that, no matter the circumstance, can be in control of what's happening in front of them.
Yeah. No. One of my mentors, his name is Dominic Borde from Austria. He said something similar, and he was using these examples. Also, he was sharing like insanely horrible experiences to teach me a lesson, and to say, like, from his experience working with entrepreneurs, athletes, actors. He used to live in Hollywood. He was actually, I think, working with even Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just to give a bit of context, that, you know, especially for people who are very competitive, that's where I could resonate with him really well. I was talking with him about, you know, relationships and how to be a better man and business. And it's just really nice to talk to people that are really like 10, 15, 20 years ahead of you, who have gone through similar shit, similar worries, problems. And he said, Ben, the only thing I can teach you, or one of the few things I can really teach you and help you with, No, he taught me more. This comes across as wrong. There was a lot of things he taught me, but the most important lesson is when he looks back on all the clients he had, and the ones that made it out of like the worst, horrible experiences and lived a successful, happy, and fulfilling life, and the ones that didn't, the ones who made it, they found meaning in it. Right? Say charity, the best example, horrible experience in the childhood, and then they opened a charity, or they also started working as a coach. It's like, he said, this kind of like hero versus villain story. The one who becomes a hero, living a fulfilling, happy life, decides the experiences I have made through, I want to make sure nobody else has to go through, and the villain, what I had to go through, I want to make sure others also go through, right? Or have to experience the same. So he said, that's like, if I look at the pattern, it's very similar. And that was very eye-opening to me. So whenever something happens to me, and I like to have practical things, and what he was really good is adjusting his language. He knows I'm a poker player. I'm very rational. I need, like, you do this, this, and this. So whenever I have a tough time in something, I'm like, what's the meaning? And if you don't find the meaning, that's... And there's a meaning in everything, but if you don't want to learn and apply that meaning, that's where it can suck you down and get you into this dark path on something worse. And he also said,
through hell and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Why would you keep walking?
Yeah, exactly. And luckily, I haven't had to go through any of those like really terrible experiences. But even on a daily basis, or also, problems with friends and family, and just like, what's the meaning there? What's the lesson I can learn? And then ideally something so I can make sure it doesn't happen to others in the future, people around me. And I think that gives a lot of power, that you have a responsibility, right? You have been given something that you had to go through. Now make sure that others aren't going through it. that's the kind of like that gives me then in the morning the fuel to get up if you have a rough day. It's like, no, like I have to make sure, like you put on the Batman suit, like I'm talking now obviously in analogies, that's becoming a hero, whether it's for your family, whether it's for your friends. And I find this incredibly empowering.
It's the Christ archetype as well.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that Christ can be within all of us. The
interesting.
Through immense suffering, whether it's everyone suffers to the extent that they can.
Yeah.
But obviously Jesus, the Christ energy, Jesus went through crucifixion, which is one of the worst things that can happen to a human, and uses it to then forgive other people and prevent other people from suffering. Whether you believe that he did that or not doesn't matter at all. But the archetype is that Christ consciousness can be within all of us. And whenever somebody has gone through something awful, whether it's sexual assault, whether it's going bankrupt, whether it's being betrayed by a friend or a family member, or abuse or something like this, starvation or torture, that exactly what you said, that flavor of pain is your sadhana, is your lesson. And when you alchemize that darkness into light, that is then to be distributed out to a huge amount of people, even if you're not going to be on podcasts speaking about it or whatever, writing books, people that you meet in the street, people that you meet in day-to-day life. You have that message to then bring to other people. The recovered alcoholic can help alcoholics go through recovery in ways that other people cannot do, because he's walked in those steps. So if somebody's sitting out there and they're like, oh, this terrible thing happened to me, good. I'm sorry it happened. I know the depth of despair that human beings can go into, but take that lesson, alchemize it, and become that person that can help so many people, so they don't have to go through what you did, or if they are going through it, so they have a much easier path.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And it's not always going well. I think what people also need to understand, it's not like we're sitting here, we're super enlightened. Like, this is a constant battle, a constant struggle. Like, I also have days where I'm like, probably in some people's eyes, acting like a piece of shit. But, I always try to look back and say, okay, this is where I could have done better. Again, learning from it. And it's a never-ending journey. I think the moment you accept there is not really an end, it's always evolving. You always learn new things, and it's super complex, and you just wiggle your way through, and then you just give it your best, and gives it a lot of peace. Something I also had to learn. When you're very rational, you're always like, you're working towards an end goal, mission, and you accomplish it. And that's very difficult to understand. It's like, wait, there is no end to it. But then once I understood it, whether it's on my personal journey, whether it's health, whenever you think about it, the moment you start eating worse, you stop moving, it always deteriorates. There is no pause. Even if it's just a tiny little bit, a day of eating shit, tiny little bit of deterioration. It's not recognizable, but if you do it a second, a third day, and 22 days, it will be recognizable. And just understanding, it's like, yeah, you can chill some days, you can take like party, drink, whatever. But understanding, hey, we gotta go back on track, whether it's with our physical body, our mind, our spiritual body and spiritual mind. It's a constant up and down. It's like a little bit like an MTT graph, it's like goes down a lot and then boom, goes up. And ideally we want to have it a little bit more steady, but I feel like for people these days, it's really like living in these constant ups and downs, and like 2 days we attack and then 3 days living like crap. I just think
some people are steady grinders, but the people that go up and down, they're the ones that often end up dinking the tournament.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I'll stay in my job, I'll stay in my security, I'll do my normal things. They don't really like go outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah. But it's definitely a very, very interesting conversation, and I'm always super excited talking to you, because it goes into directions. That's why at the beginning you asked me, what topics are we going to be talking about today? I was like, I have no clue, because I know you're the only one that I do not prepare for podcasts.
Thank you.
Because I feel like it takes out the spontaneousness. It's like, Let's just talk whatever the fuck comes up, you know? We talk about women in poker, we talk about women in poker. We talk about wokeness, we talk about wokeness. We talk about shamans, we talk about shamans. And that's super cool, you know? I hate when things are scripted, but I also feel like from all the guests, I know you the best, even though we've never even met in real life. But I feel like I've, at least from my side...
Have we never played in person?
Dude, I played so few live tournaments.
Right.
It's like... Yeah, no,
I didn't realize we never met. But yeah, no, and it's like these are the conversations that you and I would just have on the phone anyway.
Yeah,
it's not like this is something that is a little bit off. This is just us. So,
yeah, no, for sure. Awesome. What's next for you? What are the next challenges, obstacles, projects, ideas, goals?
So Elite University is a big part of my life right now, and that is the coaching site, which I'm I love what we've created. I love the daily coaching. I love that we've created a community of people that actually care, and I've created something that every step along the way is exactly what I use to get to the point that I'm at. But I will say I'm struggling with the business side of things. Because I'm juggling being a father, I'm juggling my charity, I'm juggling so many other things. The consistency in being a businessman is something I'm really just learning now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a successful business, and I'm definitely a little bit hard on myself. And the community that we've created, a ton of people have already had wild success going from low stakes to high stakes grinding. And we have daily coaching calls. Like everybody's on the same page. Everyone's really high mindset, like good vibrations, good fucking. Everyone's just wanting each other to succeed. The parts that I struggle with, marketing, like building the right team of people that are.
But you're putting out good content, man. Like your short form content, everything. I really enjoy watching it. Or is it just the frequency, or what's the problem?
It's like the being hard with like conversions and things like that, like the creating the funnels, and I've just hired a marketing agency for that, so it should be good. But it's just like I've just had so many ideas and then not had the right team around me to implement them. And that's all on me. Everything is on me. Like I take responsibility for everything in the community and in the business. But just building the right team. The first time I tried it with Epiphany Poker, I got scammed by the co-founder, or the guy that I'd hired to help me with it. He just took all the money and ran, and then held.
You had access to the business accounts, bank accounts.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
fucking hell, man.
My bad. Shout out to Reese. Good job, dude.
Is he known in the poker community, or?
Not particularly, no. He's probably out there scamming someone else.
How much are we talking about?
It wasn't much. It was like 50K, but whatever. And it could have been like 20, because I honestly don't know how much he was scooping. But whatever. You know, it was a fantastic lesson. So yeah, I just been there's like a consistency that comes when you know, I've got a YouTube channel, I got a business, I got my charity, I got a relationship, I got my I'm my father, you know, all of these things. And then I'm also on this I'm meditating 2 to 3 hours plus every day, like minimum 2 every day. And
really, wow.
Yeah, it's intense. And so to have all of this happening, the first thing that usually goes would be like exercise, and the second thing that might be like my business stuff. So, you know, just adding, like you did, just adding a little human to me. It's definitely not all roses out there. I have very long time frames where I just neglect a part of my life that I should definitely not be neglecting.
You just mentioned marketing agency. Is it you trying this for the first time, or?
No, I've hired a bunch of these guys are at least very cheap because they're Indian, and I'm planning on penetrating the Indian market pretty hard. So I've spent so much money on marketing people before, and as you know, everyone sucks. I'm sure there are a few great people out there. In fact, Reese was the best I've ever found at marketing.
But you paid also the highest bill for it.
Yeah, I paid 100% of the company for it. Yeah. But yeah, it's so. What's your experience here? Like, as somebody that you obviously have, I guess you're technically my competitor, or it never feels like it. What's your experience with these types of things?
Never good experience with agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing: if you understand marketing, you build your own stuff.
Yeah.
If you that's what it's trying to find this one guy who understands marketing and builds it for you. There we have. I'm very happy with our team. But it has also been a long journey, and I think a lot of people don't underestimate marketing. Marketing to me is very similar to poker. You have some fundamentals, preflop ranges that you cannot neglect. And you can go into the nitty gritty down to words and pacing and editing and the visuals, the cuts, everything down to like GTO frequency. Like it's crazy. And so what I learned is that marketing is to a certain degree also part of the CEO, owner, or founder. Like trying to outsource it and letting it, I don't know how much you want to be involved, but you have to swallow the pill that you have to be somewhat involved. You have to educate yourself about creating viral content, copywriting, ads, like all that kind of stuff. Don't need to be perfect, but the thing is, if people sense that you have no clue, they just create dog-ass content and they just charge. I mean, if it's cheap at least, all right, I get it. But especially in Europe, there's so many agencies that are just so bad and they charge you so much money.
Yeah. It's a rough lesson to learn with tech agencies, marketing agencies. I like in my charity, I built an app and I've spent probably like $300K on it. And I didn't need to. I could have hired some private people that were developers, but I hired an agency and they just want to squeeze money out of you.
Yeah.
And I learned that lesson luckily relatively early on, and now building a team is much more important. But yeah, it's been a tough thing because I just don't have that much free time to put towards my business.
Are you afraid to find another business partner because of your previous experience?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't know that until you just asked, but I think that's true. Yeah.
Because I think you need a business partner. Actually, you need that guy that runs that. Ideally,
I have a CEO, but I don't have a business partner. Like I have somebody who's running ship. He's very trustworthy, very good person. He's extremely bright, but he doesn't know he doesn't know poker particularly well. He's learning it now. But yeah, I think like giving away percentage. Like, do you have 100% of your company, or do you
of Raise Your Edge? Yeah, but with let's say core people, we have profit cuts. So the people that have been taking on a lot of responsibilities, and Tim Thompson, Jeremy right now is my business partner. Like the thing is, we could do it through. The thing is that also, like, imagine you exit elite university. What would it really be? The value would drop tremendously. So I just think that shares for such a brand for someone else aren't really worth a lot unless you create a product that can run on its own. So I think the platform...
That's kind of what I'm aiming towards in the future.
Okay, then it makes sense. But I just think right now that's why I'm giving profit shares. So you get an instant reward. Even though I also have to say that the last couple of years we've been spending a lot on the app for paired, and we also had a lot of marketing expenses that I wish I could pay more.
It's a little slim these days.
Yeah, but it's also we're spending a lot. Like the output
There's also a weird incentive structure where you kind of want to run your company at a loss so you don't pay taxes. Yeah, so that's not so good when you're doing profit share.
Yeah. No, like we keep it very transparent. There's also like a lot of the expenses that I have that we say, all right, they're not driving to the success or let's say revenue of the product. We're not considering that. If I travel to wherever, like a lot of the expenses are in there that don't necessarily, like if I have to fly to Berlin to my lawyer or accountant or whatever, like we're not putting this expense in there. Right. So like then, and that's just how we determine the profits for my partners, and then the other expenses, and then
accounts.
Yeah. And that's totally fine to do. I've been also, I don't want to say scammed, that's why it was also hard for me, but at the very beginning, my first business partner, he made so much money with us. He had a ridiculous share. And all he did was just setting up some ads, and that's what I learned my lesson, that I need to be involved a little bit more in marketing. and then he just didn't do shit anymore, and he just left. I mean, he didn't really scam us. The last couple of months, it's borderline scam because he didn't really do anything anymore, and he had a ridiculous cut, and he took all the money, and then he just left, and he wanted to sue me as well. Yeah, we had a call where he wanted, we want to talk about it because I realized he lost motivation. He actually offered himself, hey man, you know what, just whatever you want to do for the last 3 months. I know I haven't been really putting in the work, and it's totally fine if you want to. So I was thinking about it, it's like, you know what, let's meet in the middle. I recognized it. I sent him a message. Think about it. We can jump on a call. I never really like to go on calls and make tell people, hey, that's my idea. It's kind of like you meet them off guard. Like, so I send messages in advance. This is what I have in mind. This is what I would like to talk about. Think about it. You're trying to break the contract. I'm gonna sue you. You're gonna hear from my lawyer. I'm like,
damn, dude.
So then he tried to he sued the shit out of me for the shares and also for everything else. And I was like,
this is for Raise Your Edge, the company that is you.
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted, you could just dissolve the company and create a new one.
Yeah, I could have done this, but also, you know, I had so many messages from people, from other creators and partners. There's like, he's not responding to me. He didn't deliver this, and we had a contract. Like, I had all the right to not pay him a single penny for months. And I like me making that offer, like I pay you 50% of what was agreed on, was just like a gesture of goodwill to not end up in any hassle. So that was like, really, man?
Now he wants to fight.
Well, so we fought, and then obviously he just had a lawyer sending a bunch of threat letters, and we just like sending a bunch of screenshots that just proved that he wasn't delivering. I was like, what do you want to do?
I'm immune to the lawyer threats now these days. First few lawyer threats I got, I was like, oh no. Yeah, and then I was like, okay, people just send these things with absolutely no.
We had the most ridiculous threat from America from, I'm not going to say the name now because it's going to create a lot of drama, but people can maybe speculate that...
I'll guess for the audience. I'll guess. All right, but carry
on. One of the... I don't even show they're in America, to be honest. Anyway, we got a letter sent to my lawyer that because we have Paired as a training app, right? And we were using like something with, don't use every word for granted, but something like we used like poker training or whatever, and they wanted to sue and have all our revenue from the past since we launched Paired, because we used that term.
Was it Upswing?
No, it was not Upswing.
Okay,
it's like a rather. Anyway, it was ridiculous. I wouldn't say yes or no, but like no, we're cool with Doug. We had a we had a podcast. Everything is cool. But I was like, fuck, really? But obviously we were just like,
that's what happens between Upswing.
Fuck off! Like, you're not getting a cent from, because you cannot protect generic. I cannot call my app, let's say, poker training, and then expect nobody else. Even if I get a trademark on it, you for sure wouldn't get a trademark on it, but it would never be a case. You could never make a case from it because it's too generic. You cannot protect those generic terms. It needs to be very specific. Maybe Epiphany, poker, another specific term that's you can protect, but then people could still use poker, obviously, right? But nobody could call their own trainer Epiphany trainer or Epiphany community or Charlie Carrel poker training, right? This is stuff you can protect.
I think what happens is that people hire lawyers and they don't really pay attention, because this happened between Doug and Jane Anders, where Upswing and Jane Anders, where Upswing was suing Jane Anders, saying that they had coined the play and explain style videos, saying that anybody who's like playing and then talking over it, this is all allegedly because I don't want to get in trouble, but this is allegedly exactly what happened. And yeah, that whole argument is like, we coined the play and explain videos, so you know we deserve all of the profit share we get from this, which they didn't coin it. It was around for a long time. But I think what happens, I don't think someone like Doug is stupid enough or unethical enough to do that. I think people just hire lawyers that are like, okay, we're just going to maximize.
Dude, lawyers are the worst. Like, it's fucking insane, man. People have no clue how fucking greedy lawyers are, and often how useless they are. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm so happy that my best friend is a lawyer because he honestly tells me, Ben, this is not worth pursuing. And accountants and lawyers you have to be very careful about because they make money off your problems. And they have no interest in telling you that there's no problem or there's a case that you can't win. So they will always tell you, there's slight chances, yeah. Because at the end of the day, it depends, right? And they cannot be made liable for losing a case, right? You could bring up so many reasons to potentially make it, like this play and explain bullshit. Because I agree. I can imagine that this wasn't even Doug's idea or anyone from Upstream. That was maybe a lawyer looking into it. Oh, they were using it and blah, blah, blah. Let's make a case. Let's sue them, whatever, right? And they have no fucking clue. And anyone that can count until 5 might think, this has been around forever. I remember poker strategy back in the days. That's how I learned sitting goals, from these play, live, and explain videos. But does a judge know?
I actually might be giving Doug a little bit too much credit. I just remembering the entire. Did you follow that?
No, not really. Like I tried to stay away from it. I think I briefly talked to.
Pretty gnarly.
Sorry.
It was pretty gnarly. Like they made this website about how Jane Anders is a scammer, and then because they're so good at SEO, they made it so the first thing that came up, if you Google search his name, was how he was a scammer. And he definitely, like, Jane Anders didn't scam at all. He's just not that kind of guy. And they kept that website up for a whole year, and then made so many videos calling him scam, like editing things out of context. And it's like one of these like really huge harassment campaigns that it's dead and buried now. So I don't want to like bring things up again. But people get cruel in these spaces. I completely forgot about that until now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know this case, and I don't know who brought it up and started it, but my point remains that lawyers and accountants, man, like it's
lawyers and accountants, man.
If
accountants are women, am I right?
If you talk to some real lawyers and accountants, they will confirm it. They know. It's the same with us poker coaches. They're like some really dog ass poker coaches who have no fucking clue, and they just pay a lot of money and they just teach you some GTO bullshit. And that's the problem. You might think just because they study law, and again, like my best friend is a lawyer and I trust him 100%. And he has helped me through a lot of dumb shit. It's like the problem is that they don't understand the economical side of things. So a lawsuit might cost you, or you might win you $5,000, but the fucking law case costs you $15,000. And there's a big difference between winning a lawsuit and getting your money. Because if they're bankrupt or whatever, and they just dissolve the company, and that's the thing, like a lawyer, he has no responsibility to educate you about all the repercussions and consequences of certain actions with the business and whatever. It's like, do you really end up getting your money? Is it even worth pursuing it? What about your hourly? Telling you, Ben, if you want to do this, I need 30 hours of your time. You need to make a testimony. I need to share those details. You need to fly there. So yeah, maybe just accept that you lost $15,000 and move on. And this kind of conversation is something, yeah, you might say it's not in the interest of a lawyer. Well, but then I can argue, well, it's in your interest to really think about it and ask these questions, because my lawyer, my best friend, he also trained me and said, Ben, you need to ask these questions. What are the chances of happening this? How much time does it need from my side? What are the chances of winning? And you need it in written form, not via phone call. And it's you need some education and training on how to work with lawyers and accountants if you really want to get the most out of it. It's ridiculous. Most of the time, you're being scammed for dumb shit. The stories I've heard, what lawyers and accountants are charging for some drafts, they're just exchanging the details. It costs them 2 minutes, but they charge you 5 hours because we need to research this and all this bullshit. It's crazy, man. And it's not just some black sheeps.
I will say this is probably not the most interesting for other people to listen to. I would love to speak to you more about business things, just one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because it feels like we've gone through a lot of similar stuff when it comes to these things.
No, for sure.
I'm feeling tired, so let's. I think the artistic decision would be to like cut out some of the legal stuff, especially I had a knock on the door and stuff like that.
Sure, man. I didn't want to bore you with that.
No, for me, it's not boring whatsoever. There's a frustration inside of me with all of the lawyers and accountants that I've dealt with over the years.
Yeah, you did.
Anyway, Oh my God, so many.
I guess with the charity, probably a lot of regulations and stuff. I can imagine that's a massive pain, no?
That's exactly it, yeah. Especially because it's a new charity where we're doing so much that the world hasn't seen before. Like when it's a normal charity, it's fine. You can just kind of copy and paste a bunch of stuff. But given that, maybe we can put this bit in. It's like in the charity sector, they haven't seen anything like what we're creating before. So the legal issues that we're running into, the political ramifications and potential opportunities as well are unprecedented. We're wading through waters that people haven't been through yet. And it means that, I mean, we have the potential to absolutely change the world with the technology that we've created with this charity. But to get there, it's like, yeah, we gotta shake the right hands of the right people. We gotta cross our I's and dot our T's or whatever the fucking thing is. And, you know, we have to do all the right stuff.
You want to explain in a nutshell what this technology is about? I mean, you told me last time, but maybe for people, and I guess also it's a lot of like data and privacy stuff that needs to be.
I mean, no, there's not too much privacy. Essentially, is this? Imagine you're walking down a street in, let's say, London, because we're starting in London. And instead of somebody begging for money, like usually if you walk down the street now, you see someone begging for money, they'll be like, hey, can I have some change? And you don't want to give them money because you, first of all, don't know if they're really homeless because there's a lot of scammers out there. You don't know if they'll spend the money on drugs. You don't have money because you don't carry cash anymore. You don't really feel comfortable because it's like a human interaction. You're a little bit uncertain about it. And if you do want to give them money, then you might go through a charity, but you also don't trust charities because charities often have stolen or they spend it on marketing, whatever it is. They overpay their employees. And so we've created an app that essentially is more of the first phase of it is a very logistical solution to a lot of these issues. And now what you'll see when we launch in London and it can then spread to the entire world, whoever wants to use it, and we'll make it relatively open source depending on who wants to use it. Somebody can hold up a placard or they can have a wristband, and this person that's homeless, they'll have an account with us. They'll have on there a unique QR code, their name, a photo of them so it's IDable. So they don't need the app themselves. They just need an account that we've helped them sign up with. You can donate money to them by scanning a QR code. You can even do it from home, which solves the issue of like approaching somebody. You can do it from the other side of the world. And you can give them, say, £20, and they can only spend that £20 on places that Thrive, our charity, has connected with. So like a restaurant, a coffee shop, a hostel, a hotel, something that's going to give them addiction recovery, something like a passport they can spend it on, things like this. Other charities.
Okay.
And so the money is 100% of it goes to them. So it's 100% efficiency, 100% transparency and trust. All of the issues of not trusting charities is gone. You know that it's a real homeless a person that's homeless because there's no incentive for a fake homeless person to sign up because we're not giving them opportunities to buy anything that they can then sell on. So no like tents and sleeping bags and stuff like that. You know they can't spend it on drugs because there's no opportunity to spend it in places that we wouldn't be able to. You know that it's 100% of the money goes to them, and you don't need to worry about approaching them on street because you can literally just scroll through and find somebody. So you can give someone £20 and they can have a place to stay for the night. And so that's the first phase. And now we've got huge support from the government. I even had a meeting at number 10 Downing Street with one of the main advisors to the previous prime minister, the main advisor in the charity sector to the prime minister, is now working with us.
Nice.
Kind of for us. And yeah, it's been a lonely journey up until the last 6 months, and now I finally got support on it, and yeah, it feels good. And we're gonna change the world with it.
The thing is, you know what's frustrating, and I can just hear the pain in your voice because as an entrepreneur, and you know, I'm not comparing myself with you because what you're doing does contribute a lot more to the world. And this is what people don't understand these days. There are a lot of people out there that really want to do something good, but they just can't. Like, imagine, I guess you also used a lot of your own money and like,
oh yeah,
right? Like, being in your situation, I don't want to say you had it the easiest, but comparing to the average person, you had a lot more flexibility. You don't have a 9 to 5 you have to show up. you don't have like a toxic boss, or you also have your problems. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say you're easy to life, but just in terms of the resources, you have an advantage. And yet, it's so fucking difficult to do something good in these days. I speak from my own experience in Germany. People don't understand. If you want to move stones in Germany, you have 20 fucking horses in your back pulling you back. And you have to carry the stone from A to B. That's how ridiculous authorities, governmental regulations are. It's ridiculous. And I'm not just talking from my experience. I mean, we were in Austria. It's a little bit better there. But from business friends, other entrepreneurs, it's ridiculous. What really frustrates and pisses me off is there's a guy like you who really wants to, like, I mean, you can't think of something more beneficial to society than helping the poor, helping the homeless. And yet, I mean, we had our first podcast, like 3 years ago? We were talking about that app. Mm-hmm. I remember 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep, something like that.
Why is it not already like being supportive, being put money in there? Why is it not active? Why isn't it worldwide? Why? I don't get it.
Because every time there's always some technological or especially legal ramifications that we have to consider. And imagine this: we're going to go on the streets, and the app's going to be it's already been in the Play Store, but for the second time, it's going to be in the Play Store now this coming Monday. And we're going to go test it again in Milton Keynes. Mm-hmm. But to be there, we have to make sure that we don't do anything that can get us sued. So even helping people, we can't help them in a lot of ways. We have to have a social worker with us. We have to make sure that so many contracts have been signed, so many things. And then politically, we have to make sure that everything's aligned because there's been a change from Conservatives to Labour recently. And there's like new people that you have to meet and greet and all these things. And so finances is the least of the problems that I've had. I mean, I've put more money into this charity than I have money. But it's still that's the least of our problems. It's just the red tape. It's just the people that you have to like get through. It's like the people who are lazy, the people who are whatever. So I do have this deep trust that things have happened for the best reason. I think that it was good that I couldn't launch when I wanted to many times because I personally wasn't ready. You know, getting scammed by my business partner a year ago. Thank God I got scammed by him and learned the lesson, and not scammed when I'm holding a ton of money in a charity 5 years into the future, or like going through personal struggles and making sure that I can be the person who can at least like keep a tidy apartment and keep myself consistently meditating every day so I can always be there and be ready. So I do believe that it's happened for the best reasons, but yeah, it's extremely frustrating that you want to do a great thing, and it's just like, oh my God, the world is just full of people that are like, actually, you have to pay me loads of money, and I'm gonna take more than I earned. You know, it's yeah. All right, I'm getting sleepy, so let's end on that.
And I'm getting angry.
Well, channel that anger.
Yeah. All right, Charlie. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. It's always so beautiful. You're such a unique person.
Thank you, man. I can return the compliment.
You've thought about the world so much that it's like I can bring up any topic, and you're like, yeah, here's all the thoughts that I've had about that thing, and I love that. I love meeting. It's so rare to meet somebody where it's like, oh, what do you think about fucking water quality? And they're like, well, actually, I've thought about this. You know, it's very nice to have new perspectives kind of thrown at you all the way through a conversation. So I really respect that in you.
Yeah, let's catch up on the business side of things, and also continue the conversation with that project I had in mind, that secret project that we're not going to be releasing here right now.
Guys,
I think that's going to be epic.
Gonna be a game changer.
Oh yeah. All right, Charlie.
All the best. See you next time. Peace, beautiful people listening.